For quite some time, the young man had to keep an eye on this monster, Gennial, who was now greedily eating his prey. This time, he decided that he had to finally finish it off. The moment to do so was right now. To kill such a strong monster, Xiaoyu chose his best weapon specially designed for hunting. With his special gesture, he summoned a martial armored fist that was gathering right on the move. The opponent was strong, so he decided to use the energy thunder armored fist technique. Such a fist could even pierce through the thickest skin, what to speak of this thing. It seemed as if the beast was finished and was now unlikely to get up, but this strike didn't kill the strange beast, but only left it injured and angry. After which Xiaoyu had to defend himself. It was undoubtedly an even fight, but the advantage was clearly Xiaoyu's. He stood firmly on his feet. He wasn't even injured. He had one goal: to destroy this monster. Somewhere nearby, Xiaoyu also smelled another Gennial, but fortunately, he liked surprises and was prepared for this. The more of them he destroyed, the better for everyone. The consequences were not only on the monsters, but also on our hero. Even though he was minimally injured, there were definitely bruises, and if they were not healed, the condition could worsen. Xiaoyu knew what he was going for, and even after this realization, he still dared to go. Those animals were cannibals. It was very dangerous. Brother Taiwai would meet the emperor in the capital, and sister Xin would officially marry Taiwai's brother. Of course, Xiaoyu needed to personally go hunting for a worthy gift. It just so happened that the medicine the healer was making could have Gennial's horn added to it as a boosting ingredient.
But the guy was worried about one question. After his brother's meeting with Emperor Qing, would he be given a promotion? The emperor held the Fa sect in high esteem, but the Mo sect was also quite good. Big brother was much better than Shufu.
Emperor Qin pacified the entire country, ending several hundred years of continuous wars. It was a remarkable feat. However, in order to obtain the elixir of immortality, he gathered all the most famous sects. And now, the good and evil scientists are trying to gain the emperor's favor. The sister was very worried because something bad might have happened since Shu Fu had not returned from the sea voyage. As if on a summons, someone knocked on their door. A huge army of warriors could be seen outside the door. The old man at the head of them came to announce unfortunate news. Little brother Tai was in great trouble in the capital. Without waiting a moment longer, the sister and brother set off, not long before they should arrive in Xianyang City. But what they saw from the chariot window scared them to death. The fire outside was getting bigger and bigger, and no one was trying to put it out. They traveled like this the whole way, surrounded by fire, but they were protected by warriors, so they made it to the capital without difficulty. Young Master Tai was worshipped by the emperor. The emperor accused him or Shu Fu of openly lying and didn't believe anyone. Many people said that Tai was a higher level than Shu Fu, but the emperor saw no use in it. If it wasn't for the Mo community's engineering strategy, which, by the way, is hardly worth anything, the emperor would have long ago thrown him and the others into a corpse pit and burned everyone. Tai kept swearing his honesty, and that he had never deceived the emperor. Because of Shu Fu, the emperor was angry at all the scholars of the country and the communities, and this only his good name in history. The emperor should have thought it over and stopped this act of burning books and burying scholars. But these words did not affect his thoughts. On the contrary, they made him angry. As a consequence of these words, it could seem as if the emperor was mistaken, and proved the fact that he was being deceived by everyone. The emperor spared nothing for them. No lavish rewards or high ranks, no money or gold. So why didn't the wards satisfy their emperor's wish? The emperor's shouting had completely descended into a cough. It was difficult for him to speak. The handmaiden hurriedly reassured the emperor, for Tai was the supreme master of the heavenly spirit temple of the Mo community, and he was also proficient in the techniques from the books of spiritual seals. He was far more experienced in the secret arts than any other scholar. Tai was even involved in the construction of the royal tomb. It wasn't right to put him on a par with all those liars. But the emperor could no longer trust any of the scientists. But if they were all executed, then who would perfect the immortality elixir for him? The servant had volunteered to help again. He knew how to check if Tai was loyal enough to the emperor, if he was willing to sacrifice everything for him. In a whisper, he informed the emperor of his plan, which the latter immediately approved and ordered it to be put into action. Lord Tai's relatives were called into the huge imperial hall. Apparently, they were part of this plan. Xiaoyu and Xin were all here. Tai couldn't believe his eyes. The girl hurried to him, at least to touch her lover. If this was their last meeting, Xiaoyu could only guess that things were not good. The emperor and his castrated handmaiden, they seemed to be up to something, and it was something definitely not good. If only he knew, you wouldn't have let sister come here. The handyman knew exactly what to push for. After all, these were the dearest people to Tai Yi. The younger brother and heiress of the creators of the Spirit Valley's Wang meditation technique, Xin Er. The emperor doubted the words of the scholars, so in order for Tai to prove his loyalty to the emperor gave him one last chance. Tai must choose one of these two men to be walled up in a column and buried in the royal tomb. This way, he will prove that he is willing to do anything for the emperor. Xin-er and Tai were terribly confused and pale as death. Mo Xiaoyu could no longer contain his rage because his older brother had left the village and left them to serve the emperor, and ends up being treated like this. He could no longer speak. It was as if a lightning bolt had struck his head, as if someone had told him that he was very intemperate. The cloaked stranger had only to touch the young man to shut him up without a word. No one was going to listen to his impulsive speeches. Everyone expected him to favor and respect the emperor. How he did it was unknown. Mo Xiaoyu didn't feel his presence at all, but one could sense how strong this stranger was. He couldn't even imagine that all the people in the imperial palace were such monsters. To prevent his brother from blabbing anymore, Tai promised the emperor that he would do his best to refine the immortality elixir. He would do whatever the emperor demanded, as long as he reconsidered his decision. A loud and disdainful laughter could be heard in response. The emperor had already made his decision, and if Tai could not prove that he was not like Shu Fu, then all three of them, along with their Mo community, would share the fate of the other scholars. And in the end, the entire Mo clan would be buried alive. Ever since the emperor destroyed an entire country, boundless greed and cruelty grew in him until they finally took over and turned him into an evil man.
Has he lost his mind?
Is there really no other way out of this situation? Tai had always helped Yin Jing for the good of the Mo community, and he couldn't even imagine that it would affect his younger brother and Xin Er. What would he really have to choose between these two? There were so many good moments and memories between them, and not a drop of anger, and now he has to willingly wall someone up at the whim of the emperor. He was torn apart and didn't know what to do. All his life he had taught his brother to hold his head up, get back up after falls, and not accept defeat. If he did the same in this situation, he would not emerge victorious. Tears wouldn't stop flowing from her eyes, for this was her last meeting with Tai. Xin Er had made up her mind. For now, Tai would take care of Mo Xiaoyu. The girl made her decision, and willingly decided to make this sacrifice. Before she could finish her speech, little Yu saw the obvious that he was the one who had to do this. Mo Xiaoyu decided that he was better suited for this role than an ordinary girl who was saving up a lot of universal spiritual power every day and night. Brother and Xin Er were completely confused. They tried to stop little Yu, but they could see that it was useless. The only thing he asked was that they not worry. This time he decided he had to handle it himself. The emperor seemed to be pondering whether to choose this boy or not. He did not let his gaze leave this boy's side, and kept looking at him evaluatively. To prove that he was the best contender for the role, Mo Xiaoyu reminded that Xin Er was a direct descendant of the people from the Great Spirit Valley. If the emperor needed to refine the immortality elixir, it wouldn't be possible without her skill, courage, and absolute fearlessness before the clutches of death impressed the emperor. So the latter promised that for his heroic spirit, he would meet his death unperturbed. His brother should personally turn him into a wooden statue. Human sacrifice is an exchange and final ritual, from which the word servant is derived. The word was originally used to describe people whose only purpose was to be sacrificed to the gods. Kanjona, this creator of evil practice, has no future. They are supposed to be clay figures, not living people who are buried with the dead. Those who refused to observe the Zhou rituals were to be cursed and have no descendants or heirs. Whether it would work or not was unknown to anyone. The excitement never ceased. Mo Xiaoyu gave himself up to the gods, and unfortunately, his brother couldn't protect him this time. Now he found himself among the other warriors. So he stood there until the burial site was found by archaeologists. People were surprised to see a lot of warriors. These statues have been preserved as well as possible. In order not to spoil anything, the archaeologists tried to be as careful as possible. So they sealed all the warriors in special boxes and took them to Youcheng. Such finds made a loud furor for ordinary people. There was some research, but then the warriors were immediately put on display in the museum. And now, the people of China could personally observe the terracotta army of the first emperor of the Qin dynasty. Excavated Qin dynasty artifacts were found on Mount Man. It seems they were the only rare treasures archaeologists found. The girl hurriedly captured this warrior and also sent a message with a statement about the Qin dynasty. She believed that there was a huge gulf in the difference between the movie industry and the real events in the Qin dynasty, and only drama was important for movies. The people in the group knew that the girl was doing her own work on this topic and were happy to help her. Like-minded people fully supported the above said by the girl, so they were not against supporting the young street movie star. Only after such messages, she thought, to work on her femininity and change her self-image. And the museum tour was still going on, as the tour guide reminded us. The girl's attention was caught by a strange man who looked like a huge mouse. The monkey sitting on it cheerfully said hello to the girl, to which she replied. The guide drew the visitor's attention to the new terracotta warriors that had been found at Mount Man. Among them, the rarest, the only metal warrior. At first glance, it might seem like an ordinary armor, but there was no way to put them on. Examination revealed that they were covered with Qin-era inscriptions on the inside, and the metal hadn't collapsed or even rusted in 1,000 years. It was really something precious. The girl wanted to take a picture of this warrior too, which in principle was not forbidden. But you can't touch the exhibits with your hands. The man-mouse couldn't believe that it was really a treasure. Archaeologists often called the most ordinary things legendary, but this time they didn't exaggerate. According to legend, before burying eminent people alive and burning communities together with their works, Emperor Yingzheng used all the strength of his country to create the first and last rare treasures. Among the finest military creations were 12 metal warriors. He put the souls of his outstanding generals into jade stones and molded them into the souls of great warriors. These souls were later bound to metal statues to give them life and the ability to walk. The emperor controlled the souls of his warriors in the hope that they would help him rule forever. After thousands of years, just one metal warrior was found. It was rumored to be named as a symbol of the rebellion during the late Yuan and early Ming periods, as it greatly helped Zhu Yuan in his successful military campaign. There wasn't an antiquities collector in this world who wouldn't want to get such a metal warrior in his collection. But if they were really so marvelous, as the man put it, the second emperor of the Qin dynasty would be finished, wouldn't he? The stranger, who had recently praised this exhibit, began to scorn this horrible creation of ancient secret arts, saying it was just an exhibit for the amusement of ignorant mortals. The man was really strange. He must have had a great imagination to tell such stories. But that didn't matter anymore. The girl was much more interested in taking a picture with the warrior. Not just with one, but with many warriors. When would such an opportunity ever present itself? But it looks like the monkey wanted to get in the picture too. She really liked this girl, and the monkey decided to just fool around. What bad luck! The girl snagged this exhibit, and just now noticed that it's completely shattered. It was as if the strange man with the monkey was trying to do just that. But what would happen to the girl now? She was already imagining pictures of standing before a judge, being punished with imprisonment for spoiling such an important exhibit. But what should she do? She was only leaning against it lightly, and she wasn't even thinking of breaking it in the least. If it wasn't for that damn monkey, everything would be fine, because it's not her that should go to jail, it's that thing. Things were taking an interesting turn. The stranger just wanted to explore the place and wait until nightfall to take the treasure. He had no idea that the green-masked King Kong would act so rashly, resulting in unexpected consequences. The stranger wasn't talking about the girl, but about the thing she dropped on the floor and broke. But their discussion was interrupted by the sight of a small hand that protruded from beneath the wreckage of the statue. Was there really a living person in there? As if on fire, guards and guides rushed in. The news that the terracotta warrior was broken spread quickly. Lying was pointless, so the girl pleaded guilty to the fact that this warrior was broken by her. And then there's that monkey. However, regardless of who it was, everyone must explain themselves immediately, or else they would go to the security room. Since the man was the owner of this monkey, he was obliged to go through with the guard. But it seems the stranger didn't even think about that. The guards were only asking for trouble. The man with the monkey was so desperate that he was ready to break the bones of anyone who dared to go against him. If he doesn't stop doing that, the police will be here in a few minutes. Only for the stranger, it was only an incentive to kill everyone here. This metal warrior and the warrior that the girl had broken, which was hiding a living person inside, were both excellent exhibits, so he was extremely satisfied. But he didn't take into account that the girl wouldn't let him kill everyone here, because she also knows martial arts. She'd already forgotten about her past. She didn't think she'd have to remember it again. Who'd have thought she'd have to get involved in this kind of situation again? The punch was really good. The stranger had really underestimated this girl. She was very beautiful, like a movie actress, fighting better than the 2 male guards put together. It was a very nice compliment, but that was the truth about the movie actress. Only if she managed to defeat 2 ants, it made her nothing more than a strong flea in the opinion of the male rat. Such a comparison was badly outdated, and the girl wasn't about to give herself the opportunity to be offended, though this guy was much stronger than those she had faced in the past. She was already wishing she'd taken the opportunity to run away. From the hopelessness of the situation, the girl asked for someone to call the police quickly, but it seemed to be completely pointless. The stranger's movements were suddenly faster. He intended to finish off everyone in the museum, and he had plenty of time to do so. Except the girl wasn't about to give up, and fought back as best she could. It was as if the stranger's excitement for this battle had been awakened. He had never before had worthy opponents who fought at his level, but now it was unclear whether he had given in on purpose, or whether the girl had been so strong. She wasn't going to limit herself to 1 punch and hit him wherever she could. Only the stranger didn't care. He slammed into the wall, but even after that blow, he didn't have a scratch on him. Maybe he just wanted to see the girl move. But she couldn't relax in any way because her opponent wasn't a clean slate. Being a professional martial artist, the girl could barely keep up with his movements because his opponent was very fast. She had to rely on the police and her own strength. Although it was unlikely that the police would be able to deal with such a madman. But with 1 wrong move, her entire defense was shattered, and she flew off to lie beside that very broken warrior. This punch was actually very painful. It seemed as if this man was just an ordinary short man. But where he got such tremendous strength from remained a question. Primitive martial arts were the worst skills used by mortals. Compared to his ingenious ki technique, they were worth nothing. The ki mixed with the girl's blood and dissolved through her body. She would no longer be able to use the remnants of her power. It was true, but the girl denied it. This man is very strong, and the girl is no match for him. She knew it, but she wouldn't admit it to him. Would she be able to hold out until the police arrived? She hoped that at least the bullets should hurt him. Meanwhile, the warrior was waking up. When he opened his eyes, the first thing he hoped to see was his sister. He had trouble opening the first eye and then the second, and it was even harder to speak, but possible. He felt as if the girl were his sister. Through force, overpowering his body that had been numb for thousands of years, Xiaoyu tried to get to his feet. He couldn't believe his eyes that it was really his sister in front of him, and tried to see if he was right. Xiaoyu didn't even hope to see his sister again, only noticing that her clothes looked rather strange. Thinking of his brother, Xiaoyu started looking for Tai with his gaze, but he noticed that he was in a strange and unfamiliar place. The girl hurriedly objected, for she was no sister. She didn't even have a boyfriend. Xiaoyu hurriedly explained that she was Xin, his brother's fiancée, but the realization was nightmarish to her. She couldn't believe the truth of those words, as if she were being played a joke on. The case was gaining momentum. No one could have guessed there would actually be a live person there, except the man was ready to pounce again with his fists for being ignored. The girl rushed to her defense, for this man was very strong, and she would not want this boy to get hurt. Only Xiaoyu decided that he would deal with him better. The girl could only guess where this mysterious guy came from. After accumulating enough chi energy, Xiaoyu called out to his opponent, which offended him. Mogwan had underestimated him. In the first fight, the stranger was left with nothing because Xiaoyu was stronger. Therefore, regarding this matter, Yu could only say that the runt who was scaring Assis was only scary because the girl was weak. Mentioning that she was weak didn't please her much, but she was still puzzled. Who was this guy? Xiaoyu was able to push this monkey trainer a long distance away with a single punch. Xiaoyu quickly realized that he needed to get rid of the man until he fell to the ground. But with such a remark, he angered the stranger even more. The man realized that the opponent in front of him was stronger than that girl, so he decided to take action and ordered the green-masked King Kong to go into berserk mode. It was now a very real gorilla, but Xiaoyu's hands were still weak, not looking like he had enough strength. But there was no other way out. He had to risk something, or he risked dying and taking his sister with him. The strength to resist this gorilla, Xiaoyu still had, with difficulty, but he held back his blows. But the power of the gorilla was stronger, so the young man fell to the floor, glad only that he had enough strength to hold back this blow. Mo Xiaoyu hadn't had to endure such a strong punch in a long time. Even for him, it was an amazing strength. And the stranger didn't understand how that was even possible. Because few people were able to resist being hit by a King Kong immediately after his transformation. What kind of background this terracotta warrior guy had, the man could only guess. This beast was stronger than even Gennial, and Mo Xiaoyu's body and still weak. Plus he was very hungry, which was very bad timing. The gorilla continued to attack, hoping to hit definitively this time. Mo Xiaoyu couldn't even notice that he was being attacked by the gorilla again, but the girl saw it in time and rushed to defend the guy. It was a very intimate moment between them. Mo Xiaoyu felt the girl's breasts and couldn't refrain from touching her. Suddenly realizing what he had just done, Mo Xiaoyu pulled back as if scalded, starting to beg for forgiveness. The girl was extremely unhappy with his behavior. She was unpleasant to say the least. But the guy held up his hands as if he were the protagonist of some haremnik. I also didn't like it when he called her sister, but now they were both in danger, so the girl pushed any showdown aside for later. It was also foolish to fight alongside such a monster. The man-rat himself raised and trained the green-masked King Kong, and he was his partner. Of all such creatures, he is the most powerful. They were trying to think of how they should proceed against such a strong opponent. But suddenly the sounds of a siren cut Mo Xiaoyu's ears, who wasn't used to such sirens at all. But this was their chance. Their chance to get away from here. They didn't waste another minute and left as quickly as they could. The stranger is here for a bit longer, but first he needs to do what he came to do. So he ordered King Kong to grab the metal warrior and move away. Unfortunately, he remembered the guy's scent, so he'd have no problem finding them in the future to get even for today. After running the farther away from the scene, the guys suddenly stopped to realize where they were going. Mo Xiaoyu thought they were going home, but the girl realized that this guy came from ancient times. Obviously, she had to take him to the police. She tried to prove that she was telling the truth, and this guy was really wearing one of the terracotta warriors. But the policeman kept looking at her like she was crazy. To be more convincing, she decided to tell the whole story from the beginning. But of course, what she had experienced and seen sounded to the policeman like a script from a Hollywood movie. The girl actually claimed that he had emerged from a terracotta warrior. Here's even a look at his clothes. But the policeman had had enough of this circus. Did this girl think that wearing a traditional Chinese costume was enough to fool the policeman? He'd seen enough of this kind of nonsense in his town. All they wanted was to be in some big news story and make a fortune and become famous. Even though she was telling the truth, they still refused to believe her. In the end, feeling a sense of duty, the policeman decided to give a few words of advice, since the girl was only a student and the guy too, it seems. The policeman saw that they were young people with a great sense of humor, which was good, but recommended to look at things soberly. Not so long ago, the policeman himself was hovering in the clouds, like a divine horse galloping through the sky. As a result, he lost a lot of valuable time on what. Therefore, he believed that young people should appreciate what they have and live each day of their lives as productively as possible, doing their best. Only by being realistic and working hard will young people be able to enjoy a full and meaningful life. After listening to all the policeman's admonitions and feeling confused, the girl only wanted to go home and nothing else. Mo Xiaoyu had already gotten excited about going home to his sister-in-law, but the girl hastened to stop him. For first, she was not his sister-in-law, and second, she had not said that he could go with her. She didn't even have a boyfriend, and if there was a misunderstanding because of that, what would she do? Getting rid of Mo Xiaoyu was not that easy. He kept following the girl thinking it was his sister, and absolutely everyone was paying attention to him, assuming he was a cosplayer. When he saw the cars, he was amazed that he could move into transportation without the help of animals. Mo Xiaoyu looked at everything his eye could see, and people looked at him. Some found him sick, and some found him funny. The girl realized that he was unfamiliar with new things and was therefore surprised by every single thing. Could this guy really be from ancient times? But no matter what, this guy still saved her life. She couldn't let people think he was some kind of sicko. So she brought him to a clothing store. She wanted to dress him up in something decent so he wouldn't look like some bum. When he dressed up properly, he wasn't bad at all. Like a normal teenager of this time. Indeed, now he looked like a human being, and was unlikely to draw so much attention to himself. But he didn't even think about parting with his old clothes, so he started folding them. These clothes were very dear to him, even though they looked terrible. It was precious because his sister had made it for him. But this girl's nerves were running out, so she threw away all those old rags as if she was trying to get rid of that past. Finally, the girl wanted to get something straight. First of all, she was grateful for the help with that crazy monkey trainer, but she didn't like the guy following her everywhere. She heard no answer, but she saw the beautiful rose in his hand that he was giving her. Oh, what should she do? Guys never gave flowers. Why did he give her a rose so suddenly? Such a gift made her very embarrassed, and she must have felt like a little girl on a date right now. The thing was, it was the little girl who gave him the flower and said he should give the rose to her. But of course, it wasn't free. The girl had to take $10 out of her pocket. This was the first time she was buying flowers for herself. Xiaoyu couldn't stop marveling at the engineering technology and didn't notice the awkwardness of the situation, which was felt by her companion. He felt as if Mo's community had overcome all the other communities in the battle for supremacy. But from the outside, it was a complete nonsense. After all, everyone was ruled by politics that Xiaoyu was not familiar with. He thought that this country was still ruled by the Qin family. Of course, it seemed very silly. After all, this dynasty had been dead for a long time. In the entire interruption in the New World, Xiaoyu was only surprised by this news. He couldn't believe that the invincible empire that had wiped out entire countries had perished. That was 2,000 years ago, so it should be obvious now that this girl was not his daughter-in-law, although these girls were very similar to each other in appearance. Therefore, Xiaoyu assumed that this girl was the reincarnation of Shiner's soul. But soul reincarnation is just a fiction. What really defines a person is their genes. Xiaoyu wasn't familiar with the word bye, so the girl had to explain what it meant. Why his sister wanted to say goodbye to him, he couldn't understand because he had gone through so much to meet her again. But a stalker from ancient times was the last thing the girl wanted to be involved in. She wasn't interested in the paranormal right now. She stormed into the cab so fast that the cabbie thought the young lady had a fight with her boyfriend. And before the guy could even blink an eye, they were about to leave. Carefully getting out of the cab, the girl immediately ran into the house, hoping that Xiaoyu didn't see her. This iron box on wheels was very fast. The boy already thought he would not make it in time and lose sight of his sister. If possible, he decided that he must study it and see how it worked. Xiaoyu's homeworld had changed so much in 2,000 years, it was unrecognizable. He couldn't believe that people had progressed so much. The younger brother sacrificed himself for the life of his older brother and his fiancée. Before being sealed, Xin had asked him to continue living if it really worked. If he was truly destined to wake up, Xin and Taya were not there despite their promises. What's the point of living now, he thought. But could he really have seen her? The young lady's morning was rough. She had strange dreams as if she had been kidnapped by a huge gorilla. Right now, she needed to go for a walk and forget about what happened yesterday. But forgetting was impossible because someone had reminded her of it, but not on purpose. This was a guest she had not expected to see, and she couldn't understand how he was here at all. Completely spat upon by the water, Xiaoyu picked up the first thing under his arms and didn't even look that it was underwear. Watching some stranger wiping herself with her underwear, the girl started to boil. What girl wouldn't think that the guy was a pervert and a stalker? But Xiaoyu didn't understand this. In his mind, he was only using a small handkerchief. And why Sis was so greedy he didn't understand, and even offered to wash the handkerchief himself. To begin with, she didn't allow this ancient Chinese splinter to touch anything, and now she wished she had turned this boy into the authorities. Xiaoyu was still puzzled as to why his sister was so concerned about the handkerchief. The girl tried to explain to him that it wasn't even a handkerchief, and ordered him to remove that odor from his head, or else she would remove him from this world. However, what was there to talk about after all? He wasn't even about this world, after all. An ancient man. What could he possibly understand? Xiaoyu still hadn't eaten anything since yesterday, his rumbling stomach telling him so. She couldn't kick this man out of her house. Her conscience would eat her up. Let her kindness be a gift for yesterday's help. He sat still and watched the girl. The longer he watched, the more he saw the very sister from the past. Xiaoyu couldn't take his gaze away from her back, and tried to feed himself illusions, as if all of his relatives were still alive. But the girl could not understand those feelings. She had her own worries, however, and he had recently shown himself to be not at his best. The food she made was incredible, not just because he was hungry, but because she was a really good cook. He had never eaten anything like this before, though, so he praised her cooking skills, for they were as good as ever. Xiaoyu kept referring to her as Sis, which really annoyed her even though she had said so many times. Then he suggested calling her Sis Xin, as he had done as a child. It was still a name she didn't like, but she didn't mind. Even though he was an ancient man from the Qin dynasty who was several thousand years older than her, Mo Xiaoyu looked like a silly little brother in the girl's eyes. But he didn't care at all. He was happy that he had met his little sister and was certain that it was indeed Shin'er's reincarnation. Sis Shin decided to finally deal with Mo Xiaoyu because she didn't know anything at all about him, including why he was following her even though she wasn't a sister. After awakening, the girl was the only person Mo Xiaoyu recognized. To have an identical face after 2,000 years, it was very strange. In Sis Shin's eyes, Mo Xiaoyu looked like a lost puppy so lonely. Would she be willing to shelter this boy who is about 2,000 years old? Such familiarity didn't really appeal to her, but she tried to be as loyal to him as possible. Therefore, Sis Shin decided to make some rules. The first rule was that until Mo Xiaoyu found a place to live, he could temporarily live on the roof. Second rule, he can't just walk into his little sister's room without a reason. If he wants her to feed him, he must first knock on the window. Well, there will be no third rule. The time struck exactly 9 in the morning, which meant it was time for her to go to work. Of course, Mo Xiaoyu couldn't go as a sister. She decided to give him money to wander around and experience the modern world, and preferably find a job. There were no such bills in the Qin dynasty even close. Mo Xiaoyu tried to look at every pattern on this bill to see what it was. Mo Xiaoyu should be careful on the street and not take anything and run away without paying, or else he would be punished. He seemed to be familiar with the laws of the courtroom. In his time, hands were chopped off for stealing, and people were killed for serious crimes. It was clear that judgment was still important in this time. After making sure that the guy understood everything perfectly, Sis Shin left for work. If she stayed a little longer, she would be late. Mo Xiaoyu decided to say goodbye the way his little sister had taught him, but he is only allowed to stay in the apartment during meal times. This time, the guy can't go after the girl. But whether he'll listen to her, who knows. Just like last time, he decided to climb up to a high house where he could keep an eye on things. He enjoyed these walks. His physical abilities allowed him to jump from building to building. Still, he was glad to have the opportunity to just wander around in this world that was new to him. In his time, girls usually didn't undress this much, so he was extremely surprised to see such maidens. But deciding not to dwell on it, Mo Xiaoyu came across a cooler with cold drinks. The vendor decided to offer him the most popular soda. He wanted to cool off, but it turned out a little differently than expected. And here comes news of the 13th annual boxing competition finals. The champion of the 5th White Tiger Cup is about to begin. Who will win will be revealed next week. Even in today's society, there were amazing guys like these. Mo Xiaoyu couldn't help but admire them. The masked guy in particular got him too, because his movements were so precise. It was like he was slicing through the air with them. After walking around the metropolis for a bit, Mo Xiaoyu recognized that this world was truly amazing and beautiful. As he continued to wander, he stumbled upon the movie sector in China. There were a lot of people, and of course he was curious to see what was going on there too. Among the vast crowd, he noticed one native face. The leading actress was there, and the Sis Shin was just around the corner. Mo Xiaoyu thought about him going to go say hello to her, but he remembered that she had forbidden him to follow her. If he went over and said hello to her now, she would probably be very angry with him. Therefore, he decided to take a look at her from the outside. Sister Shin looked very beautiful. He remembered that before, in the village, she always dressed very modestly. The girl's role was very simple. She has to wait for the assassin Wai Yadao to come to kill Tang Lin, and she, as the personal maid, will take the sword blow on herself. After that, she should just lie on the ground and wait for the director to shout cut. It hadn't been long since Shin was accepted into the team, and she had already received a small contract. It was a stroke of luck. These mysterious tales of the ancient sword and the famous show Holy Sword in Memory of Legendary Heroes are vying for viewers' views in the title of the best about immortal heroes. This was a very important job for her, and she couldn't mess it up. The main thing was to give it her best. There shouldn't be any problems. Get hit with the sword, fall to the ground, get hit, and so on. The first act had begun. The mistress was supposed to head to the jewelry store, but hesitated. You see, she wasn't in the mood. Just as the script said, the mistress is about to be attacked by a bandit, so the girl stands up to defend her. The ninja flew according to the script, but Mo Xiaoyu was not foreseen by the script. Sis Shin didn't expect to see him here, but she continued to play her part, and the guy deftly slapped the offender right on the ass. Mo Xiaoyu didn't expect Sis to work as a maid, so he warned that she shouldn't do it anymore. Sis was meaner than a megger. It was just an act, and it wasn't true. It was as if this boy's brains were mush. He was extremely surprised and didn't expect it to actually be a production, but the scene was ruined. But Sis Shin would be responsible for this incident. because she was the only one who knew this person. Of course, she was very sorry, but she decided to explain that this child was from Emperor Qin's island, so she had never seen a movie set. Of course, this incident was really unfortunate, but the director decided to deal with it later. The stuntman, on the other hand, seems to have hurt his hip. He couldn't even get up. Just trying to get to his feet, he would immediately fall down. Now, they urgently needed to replace the stuntman, but this scene required high-level skills. Where would the director find the right person now? Sister Xin decided to nominate Mo Xiaoyu for the job, as an apology to the stuntman. That punch that Mo Xiaoyu threw was quite telling, and maybe he will really fit the role. It might be a chance to prove himself, and this kid can work for free. But for his sister, it's an opportunity for him to get a job, so that he can stop clinging to her. Indeed, this guy must have some serious experience to be able to do such a thing. It seemed like just another kid who came to the set to fulfill his dream after studying at a martial arts school. This scene was very important. Would Mo Xiaoyu be able to do it? Sis Xin still insisted that he could do it, so it was settled. Mo Xiaoyu would do the scene, but the payment would still be assigned to another stuntman. The director tried to briefly explain what he had to do, and generally what his role was. Mo Xiaoyu was more prepared than ever. His stance spoke volumes about it. Well, it was time to begin. I wonder if Mo Xiaoyu felt any excitement at this moment, or if he was imagining moments from the past and was confident in his actions. Just as everything was agreed upon in the script, Mo Xiaoyu did everything exactly without deviating from the script. Then a few more acts with great special effects, and that scene was completed. The director was very happy that he had met this stuntman and asked him to leave his phone number so that if there were any more scenes that required Mo Xiaoyu's skill, the director would contact him. But what a phone number was he didn't know, so Sister Xin asked him to contact him through her. Today's filming was completed ahead of schedule. Everyone can go home after eating their bentos. Sis was tired for today, but they risked screwing everything up. It was very lucky that Mo Xiaoyu was able to replace the stuntman, and it was also lucky that that person didn't sue him. Mo Xiaoyu liked doing movies. This city has the most developed movie studio in the country, and with Mo Xiaoyu's skills, it will be very easy for him to find a job. They finally got home and decided to split up at this point, but someone was following them. The rat man was waiting for the guys at their own house, but he wasn't going to give himself away right away. The boys didn't notice anything, and each went to their own rooms. Sis went to her house and Mo Xiaoyu went to the roof, but suddenly the lad heard a strange noise and decided he'd better listen. He had a bad feeling about it. Through several floors, he sensed that there was indeed something wrong, and his sister Xin was in danger. Without waiting a moment, he gathered himself and rushed toward her, making sure no one would hurt her. Somehow, miraculously, Mo Xiaoyu managed to fly closer to the window of the apartment where his little sister lived. But someone was waiting for him in that apartment and punched him through the window. In such a situation, it was difficult to react in any way. One could only ensure a comfortable fall, which our hero did. The stranger from the museum decided to take Xin's little sister hostage, thus using her as bait for the guy. Now everything depends on Mo Xiaoyu's actions. The male rat only needed to touch Xin's delicate neck with his claws, and she would immediately die. The stranger made it clear that he wanted Mo Xiaoyu, and then he would let the girl go. He will be waiting for Mo Xiaoyu at the abandoned toy factory on Tongqi Street, where they can play with each other. If the young man wins, then the stranger will let the young lady go. But if he defeats Mo Xiaoyu, he will be able to examine his insides. The man will wait for the Qin dynasty child there. But before they set off, a loud whistle was heard, at which all the stray dogs gathered. These cuties were just an appetizer and would also delay Mo Xiaoyu for a while. Our hero should get to an abandoned toy factory before midnight. Dealing with stray dogs was not difficult for him. But the stranger's act was extremely despicable. He said the address, but where is it exactly? How could Mo Xiaoyu even know this if he was only in this city for the second day? Mo Xiaoyu should hurry up and find the factory as soon as possible, or else who knows what will happen to his little sister. He decided to run, and he didn't know where to go, but it was much better than just standing there doing nothing. Before running out into the road, he met the very same policeman who was moving leisurely on a scooter. He remembered his sister's instructions. She had told him that if he got into trouble, he could always go to a policeman, which was exactly what he had done. Such a stop was extremely dangerous, but the matter he wanted to pursue was worth life or death. Mo Xiaoyu did not see any danger and was not afraid. But the policeman was famously frightened, without any explanation as to why he ran out onto the road like that and what he wanted now. Mo Xiaoyu started asking the policeman where the abandoned toy factory on Tongqi Street was. The policeman wanted to understand what had happened, But as he looked closer, he realized that this child was familiar to him. Explaining would take a while, so he just made it clear that he needed to get there right away. Only problem is that Tong Street is where the dregs of society hide. Mo Xiaoyu looked young and was probably a student. Now the question was, what was he going to do in a place like this? It was pointless to encrypt, so Mo Xiaoyu let it be known that his friend was in trouble and was there now. Now the policeman remembered that it was the couple who had recently come to see him. He was surprised that the beautiful girl was his friend. As a police officer, he knew he had to help people even eye the service, so he ordered the guy to get on the scooter. Mo Xiaoyu remembered that he had to go to that place alone to keep the girl intact. He was about to ask to just be shown to the place, but the policeman still sat him down. The policeman took it upon himself to assume that this guy was often abused, since he was as thin as a stalk. So he asked not to worry, and promised to get his friend out safely. He was sure that it was just a small scuffle between the young men. Luckily, Mo Xiaoyu met a policeman, and he will try to prevent the fight between them. It took a while to arrive you this place of scum. People are not used to seeing anyone new here, much less cops. So all eyes were on them. After passing a couple houses, they found themselves near an abandoned factory building. There wasn't a single ray of light. It was completely dark. Is Sister Xin really here? No amount of entreaties to stay nearby would work on the policeman, so the best option was to just knock him out. Once it was over, Mo Xiaoyu promised to take care of him. Before going to meet the enemy, he activated his weapon and took down the policeman. The green-masked King Kong was already starting to follow him, relaying all the information through his phone to his master. The male rat was overjoyed and ordered the King Kong to return to greet the so-called friend together. Meanwhile, Sis was completely bound and immobilized. She still hadn't regained consciousness, so the stranger had to use a special scent to make her wake up. As a girl, she had very good training, but she was extremely careless. She began to remember all the recent events that had taken place in her apartment. The hopelessness of the situation made her want to cry, but at this moment she held herself very courageously, so that the enemy would not feel a single drop of her despair. She was ready to scream, to swear, to say she wasn't afraid of the stranger, but she wasn't. It was the strongest opponent and she was really afraid of him, and yet she continued to look her fear straight in the eye. But King Kong decided to turn her attention to something else. The monkey started fooling around with the girl, showing her a mouse. Of course, she was very disgusted with the rat, and the sister became hysterical. But what about the stranger? He was not the same as the mouse. Only the sister mouse was afraid of the mouse, and he was not. Of course, that hurt his ego a lot. Mo Xiaoyu was trying to find the girl in this vast area. He had to wander around a bit. But when he heard a scream, he realized where she was. It was enough to jump on the roof, and there it was easy to get to the right place. He ran indoors screaming to save his little sister. Well, once I saw her screaming from a regular mouse, top became a stupor. Mo Xiaoyu thought that God forbid she was being tortured here, but here. That's even better, though. The child of the Qin dynasty had indeed fulfilled all the agreements, which the male rat applauded. But the sister did not stop being frightened by the little mouse, which, by the way, was also afraid of the girl. Mo Xiaoyu was here, and now he was counting on rushing to free Sister Xin. But it wasn't that simple. The stranger wanted to make a bet with Mo Xiaoyu. If he won the fight, he could leave with the girl, and if he lost, the stranger would get his brain. But it was unclear if he really wanted to know more about the Qin dynasty. Why didn't the stranger just find some professor of antiquity and question him? Mo Xiaoyu is only a child, and he's not even 20 years old. The male rat considered historians unworthy of his time, but Mo Xiaoyu was completely different. He lived during the Qin dynasty. He might have even been directly related to the Qin emperor's hidden treasures. The stranger was thrilled that he had taken on a random assignment and it had led him to a gold mine. He considered it untold luck. If he wanted to know all this so badly, he could just ask Mo Xiaoyu about it. He was happily willing to fight the stranger. But why would it involve Sister Xin? Now he was really angry and ready to tear down anything that stood in his way. Many people wanted to fight this stranger, but many regretted it. He did not dare to go into battle himself, but summoned King Kong in his second hypostasis. However, there was a reason the stranger was so reassured. Because he didn't know all of this boy's abilities. Mo Xiaoyu absorbed seemingly all the air in this room, then let out like a hurricane. For a moment, he disappeared from the male rat's sight. But then, he attacked with another blow. Just like that, they merged together in battle. Mo Xiaoyu's speed and strength were very high. It seemed as if he had become much stronger since the last time they met. But he did say he was very angry, so there was nothing to be surprised about. The stranger decided to retreat into the background and let his monkey run wild. This gorilla was destroying everything around here. Mo Xiaoyu had to maneuver to avoid being hit by it. Last time, the young man was very weak and hungry as he woke up, but now he's in great shape. To beat him, these guys will have to try harder. King Kong was very strong, but it also had one weakness. It was that it was very sluggish. In the time it took for the monkey to turn around, Mo Xiaoyu managed to bring it to its feet. He jumped in and then used his secret techniques that he used exceptionally. As soon as he knocked out the King Kong, a male rat immediately flew over to him. It was very sudden and the guy didn't have time to dodge. The stranger scratched him. If they were just scratches. So these wounds have had time to absorb the poison. The stranger had never thought that the green-masked King Kong would be defeated so quickly. However, he had already poisoned Mo Xiaoyu with the poison of his black claws. This neurotoxin is akin to a snake's, so very soon, Mo Xiaoyu should fall. When the poison spreads through his body, he won't even have the strength to keep his heart beating. This man was very sneaky, but to use poison, no one expected that. The stranger was not interested in any rules or matters of honor. He was only interested in the result, and that was all that mattered to him. Now he considered himself a winner. If that venom equals what it would be like to be bitten by a single snake, there should be no problem. The poison literally came out of the wound like a foreign body. The stranger couldn't believe it, that the young man had achieved control over his body on a microscopic level. Unfortunately, he didn't know what the word microscopic was, but he had previously had to use a similar technique in the past to save himself after being bitten by a snake. By the way, Mo Xiaoyu is the best snake expert in the Mo community. Mo Xiaoyu was indeed stronger than the stranger had thought. But the man trusted that if he scratched him and scratched him again, the toxin would quickly spread throughout his body, and he would not allow him to extract the poison this time. Being addressed as naughty child really appealed to Mo Xiaoyu. Because if you think about it, he was older than Not and his great-grandfather, great-great-grandfather by more than 80 generations. This young man is a true man of the Qin dynasty. Did Mo Xiaoyu really want the stranger to address him as an elder? It turned out that this man was not an animal after all, and could learn. Then Sis also had a question. If he was older after all, why does he call her sister? The answer was simple, because to him, she would always be Shin's sister. The fact that this boy dared to flirt at a time like this, and even look down on a stranger, irritated him greatly. But Mo Xiaoyu didn't do it on purpose, because it was all because the male rat was too weak, and the young man didn't even have to try hard for it. In a gust of anger and irritation, the stranger pounced on Mo Xiaoyu, aiming to kill him. Mo Xiaoyu was just waiting for him to show his strength and be more serious. But he was very bad at it. The male rat relied too much on his claws, thus losing coordination. Against poisonous snakes, controlling their head is enough, but the body is useless. Against those with venom, if you avoid the bite, there is nothing more to fear. Mo Xiaoyu had already mentioned that he was the best snake catcher in his village. Usually when he caught snakes, he would make sure to shake them a bit, and since it's not a snake, why not add a chi of bright sky in the form of howling thunder? When Stranger found himself dying, he recognized that he was indeed worthy of being called a chi technique master. If the fight was an ordinary fight, this punch would have already finished off the stranger. But as Mo Xiaoyu said earlier, the fact that the male rat dared to raise his hand on his sister, Mo Xiaoyu was very angry about it. As soon as one enemy was virtually destroyed, a past enemy appeared and rose again. Mo Xiaoyu could guess that he was up because he only focused on dodging and didn't put enough force into his punch. But that didn't matter anymore. The most important thing was to bounce back in time. The stranger was already glad that this time the young man would lose because of his anger. For nothing affects the outcome of a battle as much as one's own state of mind. But he's not so easy to destroy. Even if two of these King Kongs fly at him, he won't falter and he'll fight off all attacks. King Kong was strong and managed to push Mo Xiaoyu away. The boy hit the wall with a huge bang, so much so that he smashed it. The girl started to worry about her brother and tried to help in any way she could. As soon as she found him, she saw him alive and well, standing on his feet. Sister Shin didn't need to worry about him. He had met animals stronger than this to destroy some monkey. He didn't need to exert extra effort. Nim had just broken through a wall of stone, and he still had the strength to joke and smile. But in reality, to say that he was fine would be a lie. After using the chi ray repeatedly, Mo Xiaoyu could barely stand on his feet. With one of the beams, he williated the green-masked King Kong's punch and wasted it. Finally, it was necessary to untie Sis. Sister Shin's hands were bound with a mysterious rope. It was woven from small teeth, and it was tied tightly. Moreover, the material was soft and strong. But it was just regular industrial plastic. You just have to find something to cut it with, that's all. Sis was finally free again. She wondered how Mo Xiaoyu had gotten here since he was not familiar with the area. He couldn't take his eyes off this exquisite item and wanted to study it, but he finally got distracted and decided to answer, because the girl had once told him that if there was a problem, he should go to the police. If the police brought him here, then where are they? Did that thing kill them? Then it would have been a serious problem. But no, what happened is a serious problem. One could only hope that that uncle policeman must be okay, because as we remember, Mo Xiaoyu knocked him out a bit. But for now, it was not yet up to the policeman. This stranger had woken up again with the desire to try to defeat the young man after all. It would be a good idea to take this kidnapper to the police now. But he continued his game, and this time he had a flute concerto in store. He no longer had the strength for one battle, so he decided to choose something alternative. It seemed as if he had hit his head, for even if he wanted to add some music to the fight, it was already too late. This flute is a true legendary treasure, the demonic chameleon flute. The guys made the man Rat use this last trump card. They should be proud of themselves. The flute produced a melody of such beauty that the rats, usually hidden in shadow and fear, could not resist its magical effect. They literally absorbed the sounds, as if they found something deeper and more meaningful in them that made them gather around the source of the sound. Mo Xiaoyu was confused because he had never seen such an animal control technique before, but he doesn't seem to have heard one story related to this event. But the girl surely knows it, even if only as a fairy tale. A fancily dressed demon plays a flute while commanding a flock of mice. The flute is an ancient European treasure. As one of the best treasure snatchers, this item among others in his collection, the stranger was most proud of it. It suddenly became clear that the treasure thief in front of them was a treasure thief. Why else would he want to steal the Qin Emperor's treasure? Anyway, the people who hired him are quite dangerous. They are very high-ranking, so no matter how much the stranger wanted to, he would have to obediently hand over the treasure. But no one even knew about Mo Xiaoyu's existence. The conversations dragged on, and the rats were getting bigger and bigger. The guy couldn't care less about the rats, but what about the girl? With all these rats, Mo Xiaoyu decided to deal with them himself, for he was able to do so. The best way to deal with such small pests was through key techniques and shield materialization. He concentrated all his energy into his vest and waved it around to kill the rats. Yes, he killed them all, but now the real attack will follow. Word rats on small ghosts started attacking Mo Xiaoyu at the same time. The Qi defense didn't help. They were tearing all of his clothes and scampering all over his body. But if only that, the rats were literally sucking out all his physical strength and Qi energy. If he thought that solely controlling the rats was his exclusive strength, it was a mistake. The legendary treasure was much stronger than imagined. Upon death, these mice would become a curse. It was much more difficult to resist against the ghost mice. Killing them was definitely not an option, so he decided to just knock them out. Such precise strikes showed the speed and quality of his technique. Knocking out such a small target must be years of training. Sister Xin was in a frantic panic because there were so many mice. Mo Xiaoyu told her to run away, but what about him? It seemed that mice from all over the city had come here. The ghost rats had no form and were invisible, so physical attacks had no effect on them. The stranger offered to admit defeat as he didn't want to collect the bones nibbled by the mice. But he recognized that this young man was extraordinary. 10 ghost mice could instantly absorb all of a person's Qi energy. A whole lot of them had already penetrated his body, but he still managed to resist. If he had taken more time to read spirit purification talismans, it would have been much easier. In any case, to defeat Mo Xiaoyu, the male rat would need 10 times as many mice. Strange transformations began to happen to his body. The ghost rats began to disappear from his skin, and the golden details on the contrary enveloped his body. It was the immortal soldier armor improved by the community of Sis and Brother Tai, by the Mo technique of nature's secrets. Mo Xiaoyu's stubbornness was starting to piss off the stranger, and if he asked for 10 times as many rats, he would do just that. The stranger took up his flute again and began to play the tune that was so appealing. It was as if all the mice had fused together to create one huge rat that looked more like a monster than a rat. Mo Xiaoyu just said this for nothing, and it wasn't worth taking his words seriously at all. But as it happened, the youngster had overexcited the stranger. In order to win, Mo Xiaoyu had to become several times stronger. How would he get out of this situation this time? And would he even get out at all? What should Sister Xin do? She had never been in such a dangerous situation, and she had never even imagined that she would be involved in something like this. Maybe she should run away. This weirdo certainly doesn't want her. She's just an innocent victim, and there's no reason for the stranger to go after her. But since when did she become such a cowardly little girl who can do nothing but scream? They were just mice. And by the way, there are a lot less of them. Consequently, she had a brilliant idea. The stranger clearly didn't want the girl to interfere, but she didn't even think about listening. With the monkey's help, she shoved all the rats to make her way through, and then threw the monkey far away! The stranger kept saying that he couldn't be outsmarted and ended up catching the monkey. Did the girl really think he couldn't catch it? As soon as he saw his ally, sadness appeared on his face. Whether King Kong was alive or not was unclear. But the man hoped the monkey just needed to rest. He promised that he would kill anyone who harmed King Kong. But Sister Shin's plan seems to have come true. She managed to take the flute away. Did the stranger think she would cower in a corner and cry in fear? Now she needs to blow into that flute. But would it really be an indirect kiss? Phew, that's disgusting. Now is not the time to think about such nonsense. A kiss, not a kiss, but the girl began to play the tune in spite of her squeamishness. The rats immediately reacted to the sound of the flute and disbanded their unity as one rat. Now they resembled obedient dogs who were enjoying the sound of the melody. There was absolute silence in the room. Sister Shin didn't think she would be so lucky. She was right in her hunch, and the male rat was indeed an animal lover, as she had assumed when she first met him at the museum. After all this, the stranger thought Sister Shin was a mean woman. But politeness demanded reciprocity. That's why her sister organized her, with her precise blow to the head. The deed was done. Now the stranger should stop doing his dirty deeds. If he could take a long beating, one blow should not be fatal to him. Sis was incredible as always. Mo Xiaoyu hadn't stopped admiring her until now, and she wouldn't stop being angry that he called her sis instead of Shin's sister. Sister Shin was unlucky enough to be dragged into dangerous events. She was already anticipating that she would have nightmares tonight. Mo Xiaoyu felt guilty for everything and for getting her sister into trouble. It was a formal apology, but how could Sister Shin blame him now? She admitted his guilt, but the guy had done a lot to save the girl, which she recognized too. Mo Xiaoyu only hoped that she wouldn't push him away this time. Either way, she wanted to talk about it later. If her sister continued to live with him, she was sure to get dragged into even weirder things. And all she wanted was to live a normal life like any other girl. And here at the end of it all, the police arrived as well. Sister Shin probably wasn't happy about anything as much as a policeman, but their joy was short-lived because they were immediately handcuffed. The young people were acting outside the law. The girl and her boyfriend were suspected of street fighting and assaulting a police officer. Mo Xiaoyu really knocked him out after all. There was no other choice and he had to do it. Plus, they were charged with animal cruelty too. Sister Shin tried to quickly explain the whole situation, but before she would get angry, Mo Xiaoyu suggested to just knock this policeman out. But he shouldn't have attacked him. As long as he wasn't killed, he'd find the boys anyway, since they'd left him their names and address when they reported the offense. The policeman, of course, got very nervous. They should have thought better of this venture and given up. The boys were still young, and after this, there would be no turning back if they killed him. He recommended that they not ruin their lives with one stupid act. Well, the sister had no choice but to allow them to be taken to the police station. And also, not to forget about this man. By the way, the officer had a chance to get a promotion and move up the career ladder. After all, this criminal who stole a treasure of national importance. Meanwhile, a certain gentleman was lounging in his pool, but his relaxation was interrupted by a call from Director Liu of the Municipal Public Security Bureau. Director Liu reported that Ms. Hong, i.e. Hong Jung's daughter, was in police custody. The girl refused to give her name, so the director had to run her through the database, which is why she was found to be Hu Jung's daughter. The situation was quite difficult, so Hong Jung had to go there personally. Before going, he reminded his ward that they were decent businessmen who were contributing to society. Sister Shin was the daughter of a powerful man who was a businessman and knew everyone and everything, but she was unwilling to use her father's famous name. Hong Jung and director Liu Yuanfei were meeting for the first time. So next time, Hong suggested that they have a drink together sometime and get to know each other better. Liu Yuanfei of course didn't mind. People said that Mr. Hong was an open and sincere person, which turned out to be true. Liu Yuanfei thought Hong Jung was just a wealth talisman for their city, but Mr. Hong tried to quickly finish with the familiarity and find out what his daughter had done. But it turned out that she had done absolutely nothing wrong, and on the contrary, she had helped the state a lot. To explain to Mr. Hong what the director meant, he provided him with the documents. The father was amazed that his daughter had gotten involved with such people. Of course he recognized this man. Many people knew him because he was a known international criminal. At first the police could not identify him, but then they contacted Interpol. No one would have thought he would be caught in their city. That document stated that this person's name was Zhang Huiwei, and he was caught by Mr. Hong's daughter, along with a young man and a police officer. Previous thefts of ancient jewels had been committed by this criminal, but he had destroyed the surveillance footage. Only witness testimonies confirmed that it was him. Only there was another problem. The young man Mo Xiaoyu, as he called himself. The police couldn't find any record of him, as if he had appeared from a stone. Speaking of stones, that officer was receiving Mr. Hong's daughter on an emergency call. Judging from the record, Hong Xin testified that this young man had risen from the terracotta warrior statue. But these words were taken as humor. It was finally revealed that these guys were upstanding citizens who happened to oblige in a scuffle with a scoundrel. Of course, the officer had high hopes that they had all worked together to catch these scoundrels. Since this was the 8th time the police officer had asked the question, the answer was still the same. Yes, they had caught these rascals together, and the police officer had done a great job, such as showing the way. Seeing her father, Xin Hong jumped up as if scalded. This was the last person she expected to see, but on the other hand, why shouldn't he be here? After all, this man is her father. She'd left her parents' house long ago. Her father hadn't tried to find out how she was doing, and was only now inquiring. But he didn't understand how she'd gotten involved with a dangerous international criminal. Only she wasn't going to answer his questions. She was still holding a grudge. Liu Yuanfei asked him not to be so strict with his daughter. After all, she had done the police an invaluable service. An ordinary police officer like him would have a hard time settling a family quarrel, so he preferred not to get involved in a father-daughter squabble. Afterwards, Mr. Hong decided to switch to the young man, who immediately introduced himself. He immediately recognized the guy as the man whose identity could not be determined. But in short, the daughter could be free after signing the papers, but she insisted on leaving with this young man. He wasn't a villain and even helped the police solve the case, so why couldn't he leave? The director was ready to write him a commendation for bravery, but he couldn't ascertain if his name was real. The policeman was well regarded. He did not look capable of such heroism. Nevertheless, lest he should boast anymore, he would surely receive his reward. The director also didn't understand how Mo Xiaoyu managed to defeat the dangerous international criminal, and where he was from either. Before the boy could reply, his sister entered the conversation. Mr. Liu must have been well aware that this city was the capital of cinema, and many young men from all over the world came here to pursue their dreams. Mo Xiaoyu was a very good fighter and wanted to be a movie star in China. Xin suggested that the policeman just contact the director of the show, Mysterious Tales of the Ancient Sword, because he knew more about Mo Xiaoyu. However, if you look closely, this guy is attractive. He had a chance to succeed in the movie industry. To fully convince to let all the boys go, Father Xin himself decided to ask Principal Liu to let them go. After all, they hadn't done anything wrong, and he wanted to take them with him. Since Mr. Hong himself had asked for the principal, in that case, Hong Zheng could take them. It was impossible not to notice how the policeman was able to suck up to Mr. Hong in such a minor situation. Hong Zheng was now obliged to invite him to dinner, and the father made it clear to his daughter that they were going to have a serious conversation. Only there was no one to talk to anymore, because Hong Xin had already left. As she left, she asked Mo Xiaoyu to ignore her father, but he didn't understand such behavior. After all, no matter what, he is still father. The girl was terribly naughty. She left without even saying goodbye, and her father demanded a little respect for him. But she decided to return the favor, because he had treated her the same way before. Mr. Hong understood that his daughter was still angry at him because of the past, because her mother was gone. And Xin was alone and without help, so her father suggested that she return to him. But Sis was stubborn, she could take care of herself. And anyway, if her father wanted her to live with him, wasn't he afraid she'd beat up those cocky bitches that were hanging around him? Mr. Hong reminded her that she was a girl and shouldn't hit people at the first opportunity. If he had only known it would turn out like this, he wouldn't have taught her how to fight. Xin had provoked a very dangerous criminal. So how could she now say that she was able to take care of herself? It was actually an accident, however. Mo Xiaoyu can also protect her, so her father shouldn't worry about his daughter. But what kind of relationship does she have with this guy? Mo Xiaoyu didn't miss the opportunity to tell his uncle that Xin is his. But But he wasn't allowed to talk about her being his sister at all. Mr. Hong was trying to put 2 plus 2 together. Guessing led him to the fact that it looks like his daughter got a boyfriend. As Confucius once said, "To meet a friend who has come from afar, isn't it a joy?" Mo Xiaoyu was also puzzling over who he was, and who was a boyfriend. A friend or something? Or a boyfriend? Having finally made up his mind, Mo Xiaoyu decided to reassure his father that he is Shin's boyfriend and they live together, so his father shouldn't worry. He will always protect her. At any cost, but this did not comfort Mr. Hong in any way. Especially the phrase about them living together froze in his mind. After thinking of strange pictures, he rushed at the boy with his fists. Mr. Hong couldn't understand how this boy dared to infringe on his daughter, and how far had they already gone. But Mo Xiaoyu didn't understand anything at all. He didn't know what uncle meant. Mr. Hong felt like he was playing dumb, but he decided to explain nonetheless. Only the girl stopped them, ending their fight. She didn't need help from any of them. Shin hurriedly picked up Mo Xiaoyu and ordered him to shut up, not to say anything or ask any questions, or else she would punch him. Hongjin couldn't believe that this guy had actually dealt with that dangerous criminal. Mo Xiaoyu even held back his punch, which wasn't easy, but it wasn't enough to get his father's approval to be able to be his daughter's boyfriend. Mr. Hong would keep an eye on him. Mo Xiaoyu was very curious to know why his sister didn't get along with her father, and why they couldn't resolve the conflict. But he didn't want to ask about it because he was afraid of making her angry. The granny behind the hot food counter gave him a brilliant idea. His stomach rumbled at that smell like a frog so loud. He was very hungry, however. Sister Shin had also spent a lot of energy, so she was a little hungry. It was decided to eat together. Herbalists, Suchin and Zhang had once told him that people got along better over a meal together, so he decided to take advantage of it. Sis scrutinized the menu and finally inquired about what Mo Xiaoyu wanted. He didn't mind eating the same thing as his sister, but would also like a pitcher of liquor. Before his sister could be surprised by such a desire, Mo Xiaoyu made it clear that when he lived in Mo Village, he used to prepare the liquor by himself. She decided to fulfill his wish and ordered a liqueur called One of a Kind. She was curious to see how he would react to the alcohol. Mo Xiaoyu was dedicating this first glass in his sister Shin to express his reverence for her. Of course, he was not a novice in this business, since he drank such a strong drink in one gulp. The liquor was very strong. After drinking it, Mo Xiaoyu looked just as described in the books. The liquor made by ancient people thousands of years ago was not the same as the liquor made with modern technology. But he kept trying to argue that he was fine, and since there was a whole jug of liquor here, he wouldn't mind having another glass. The liquor was indeed excellent. The SIS enjoyed watching Mo Xiaoyu start to get drunk and relax. At the next table, a father and son were also drinking, but they didn't give it to their daughter, no matter how much she asked. The girl wasn't allowed yet. She was too young for that. But as her brother added, at least not now. But the father was very annoyed by the fact that his son imitated his words too, because he was too young. Sister Shin had already seen her brother barely standing on his feet, and I suddenly realized that she wanted a drink too, and no one stopping her from doing it. With Mo Xiaoyu's plan working, the girl began to talk about her father. It turned out that her father had led her brother down a slippery slope. Her mother must have been very angry with him because he had taken a new mistress right after she left, and pretty soon he had money. But it seems that someone didn't listen to the girl and her confession at all. Mo Xiaoyu didn't expect the alcohol to be so strong, so he could fall asleep at any moment. However, the girl was not angry at him for drinking so much, and if they left now, he wouldn't even be able to stay on his feet. This night was very hard. If it wasn't for him, Shin couldn't imagine what could have happened to her. Mo Xiaoyu protected her at the cost of his life without fearing anything. This guy called her his sister, but he was mistaken for Jin's boyfriend, and he in turn tries his best to protect her. What a weirdo. Shin understood that she should recognize this boy as her little brother that she had picked up. He lacked common sense, and shouldn't be too arrogant. Zhang Huiwei was in a deplorable state. The police interrogation had to be postponed because the perpetrator was not even conscious. It would have been useless to argue with the doctor, so the policeman left, but someone else showed up after them. Huge muscular arms climbed the tall hospital building, bursting into the criminal's room. Mind you, his room was on the 8th floor, and this man had no problem getting up here. I wonder which one of these two is sick of living. The doctor, of course, is afraid of this visitor, but no mention of the police ever came close to scaring the bulky man. Don't make any noise, or God forbid they wake the patient. The man immediately assessed the offender's condition. He was wearing multiple cuts and deep fractures. That stupid rat really got a good beating. Getting rid of the handcuffs on the rat posed no problem. As soon as the stranger did so, He immediately jumped out the window. Already being on the ship towards evening, Zhang Huiwei woke up somewhat. From his appearance, one could tell that he was still not feeling well. The stranger had been standing under him all day. Once the rat woke up, he recognized this stranger. His name was Talon. Zhang Huiwei prayed to all the heavens that information about the boy and the Qin dynasty wouldn't leak to other people as well, but since he was here, perhaps Talon already knew something. Recently, the company was not very happy with Zhang Huiwei's progress. Did the company really send Talon to kill him? Actually, killing him would be a good idea. But unfortunately, if Talon was going to kill him, he wouldn't have dragged him here. Talon was in charge of the northern district. It was unclear why he was here, but not only him, even the boss made a statement, and everyone who knows about the secret hunter had already arrived here long ago. On top of that, there was another news. The producer that these guys were looking for was hiding in this city. This information came from a certain person who served as a reliable source of information. It wasn't very believable, but if it was true, it was a big deal. So the company relieved all the members of their duties and turned a blind eye to all disagreements, because finding a producer is now paramount. Zhang Huiwei was most concerned about that guy from the Qin dynasty, and judging from the above, no one knew about him yet. But until the rat was sure of that, he made the decision to forget about him for a while. Since Talon was assigned to him, he wouldn't be able to have any privacy even at lunch. In any case, Zhang Huiwei could have been caught by those bumbling police officers. To him, it was like a chance to make things right that wouldn't happen next time. After a hard night's sleep and drinking, Mo Xiaoyu's head was very sore, and he woke up quite late. He was surprised that he was not on the roof, but in Sister Shin's room, so he couldn't quite understand why he was here.
Little by little, he began to remember what had happened yesterday. And yesterday, he had been sick from the liquor, and Sister Shin had to carry him.
Of course, it made him feel uncomfortable. But he had suffered a lot yesterday, and on top of that, he was weakened by the dark forces. That modern liquor is a dangerous thing. Mo Xiaoyu completely lost control of himself next time he decided to drink less. No matter what, the thing to do now was to find Sister Shin. You could find her in the bathroom where she was hanging up washed clothes. She was in a great mood, and was smiling like before. All this time, she had been waiting for Mo Xiaoyu to wake up. He felt as if he was seeing not Sister Shin, but Shin-er. At this moment, they were so similar to each other that he almost called her by her old name. But after all the greetings, she ran up to him lightning fast and sternly made it clear that Mo Xiaoyu was now forbidden to drink. Last night, she had to work hard to get him home. Mo Xiaoyu couldn't know that modern liquor was so strong, but he still felt guilty in front of his sister. Mo Xiaoyu had made Sister Shin constantly worry, but she quickly cooled down and was extremely grateful to him for her rescue. He had been very brave that night. On the other hand, Mo Xiaoyu felt guilty because the culprit had attacked his sister because of him. But Shin remembered that if she hadn't been at the museum that day, such chaos wouldn't have happened. With that settled, but Mo Xiaoyu was afraid that his sister would chase him away again. And she in turn wondered if he was really that concerned about it. The last thing she wanted was to see that puppy dog expression again, because she couldn't stand against it. Last night, the girl knocked out that weirdo. Did Mo Xiaoyu really think that if she chased him away, the criminal would forgive her? In any case, what's done is done. There was nothing to be afraid of, not to mention that the criminal was punished according to the law. Therefore, it was possible to go back to normal weekdays. Once Mo Xiaoyu finished his food, then they should hurry to go to the studio. The food prepared by her sister was delicious as always. Her brother still had a question. Why did the girl like doing movies so much? The question took her by surprise, but it also brought back warm memories because her mom dreamed of becoming an actress, but never got the chance. So Shin was fulfilling her dream. She worked long and hard, but she still acted as an extra. In any case, compared to Shin's father's work, the girl considered her job to be much more decent. Did the brother really think she wouldn't make it? He'd only been in the industry for a couple days, and he was already ahead of the girl. Mo Xiaoyu thought Sister Shin was very intelligent and beautiful. He didn't even have any doubts that she wouldn't succeed in becoming an actress. But this conversation bored her. She had to finish eating and try to catch the bus. Only someone was already waiting for them under the apartment. The guards said hello to their honored lady, but she tried to pretend like she didn't notice them. It was clear that these were bodyguards sent by Mr. Hong to protect his daughter. The old man sent bodyguards, but the girl didn't need them, so she let them go. Before leaving, the guards informed her that that criminal had escaped from underneath, and he had only been in custody for one night. Mo Xiaoyu wished he hadn't finished him off. All necessary measures had been taken against this criminal. But Mr. Hong was still worried about his Shin. Things were bad. for they had only recently dealt with the source of these problems, and now they were once again in possible danger. The bodyguards promised to protect Shin 24 hours a day. They were well-trained professionals. But then how can Shin continue to work? What will people say? Even fans can't go near her. So she once again insisted that she didn't need their protection. After all, those guys wouldn't even be able to handle that strange criminal. But the bodyguards asked for understanding, for an important mission had been entrusted to them and it must be accomplished. Also, the guards had something, but before they could get it, Shin yelled out asking them to stop. She ran away. She didn't care who sent them here. She didn't want them following her anyway. She cared a lot about the opinion of the people at the movie studio, and seeing these guards, it wasn't going to be the best. But they were not going to stop. If they let the girl go, then what would they tell their master? While she was running away from the guards, the neighbors thought that this girl was in serious debt because she was being chased like that. Running away was pointless, so she started threatening them. But before continuing, Mo Xiaoyu asked for permission to deal with this on his own. He was very embarrassed, but he had to be. Otherwise, they would continue pestering Sister Shin. This event proved once again that the bodyguards were unable to handle that weirdo. Even the bodyguard himself recognized this, for the guy was too strong. Before leaving, Mo Xiaoyu asked to tell Mr. Hong that he himself would take the responsibility of protecting Shin. But we had to hurry. The bus was about to leave. Fortunately, he waited for them and the bodyguards were left with nothing. It was just as Mr. Hong had foreseen. The daughter refused the help of the bodyguards. The guy who was with her was much stronger than Mr. Hong said. His daughter's stubbornness bored him, but it was expected, and he wasn't angry. It was quite crowded at work, and everyone was slamming away at their tasks. The director was happy to see Mo Xiaoyu, and as soon as he appeared, he called him over to him quickly. He came just in time. There's a job for him, and if he does it right, his salary will double. It was unfortunate, but there was no work for Sister Shin and she could rest. It was a little frustrating because she had brought Mo Xiaoyu here, however. It didn't matter. Before getting to work, we had to prepare for a role in the dressing room. The main actress has already cussed at the stylist. Apparently, she did her job unsatisfactorily, but there was no need to be angry. After all, the director had brought Mo Xiaoyu here. There wasn't much time left. He asked these two to stand next to each other so he could get used to it. These two looked great. Mo Xiaoyu really looked better than all the experienced stuntmen, so it was decided that he would change into his outfit. It was a woman's clothes, but Mo Xiaoyu was a stuntman, which meant he should be able to play any role. Mo Xiaoyu felt somehow awkward, and Sister Shin kept giggling, but he had to realize that he could not shirk. If he managed to play the role of the first plan, then certainly should not miss this opportunity. Otherwise, how else to make a living? His sister's words acted quickly, so without even hesitating, he set to his work. His role in the mysterious Tales of the Ancient Sword. Mo Xiaoyu played his role just fine. He only needed one take for such a job. Originally, the lead actress saw Mo Xiaoyu as just another stupid stuntman, but seeing that he did well, she changed her mind. But the guy didn't care. He was just glad he didn't trip over those clothes. Mo Xiaoyu didn't take any praise from strangers, especially at work, because it was just his duty. Sister Shin taught him that he had to work hard to earn a living. The actress decided to warn Mo Xiaoyu that he looked pretty good in women's clothes, and he should be careful with the director. She thought he was in the director's taste. Therefore, the actress advised to disagree with the unspoken rule. But the guy had absolutely no idea what kind of innuendo the girl was giving him. Fortunately, at that moment, Sister Shin showed up with lunch. There was no point in changing clothes after all. He still had a few more midday scenes to do. Switching to Shin, Mo Xiaoyu thus angered the actress by ignoring her. Some of Shin's work was already done. It was hard for her to admit that even though she'd brought the guy here, he was doing much better than she was. Mo Xiaoyu wanted to know more about the unspoken rule, but why he was asking, Sis couldn't understand. But they were interrupted by the director. The producer requested for the actors to meet some guests. Mo Xiaoyu was like a fortune teller, for this event was about the very unspoken rule. It was really weird since they aren't even superstars. At least the lead actress had to go. Not them. Sister Shin warned Mo Xiaoyu not to say anything and let her sister do everything. It would be mandatory to have a drink with the superiors before leaving so as not to offend them. Upon entering the producer's office, he didn't even take the time to greet her and hurriedly showed Ms. Hong the new script. There was a new movie coming out, and the girl was just thrilled. But the producer didn't know if Ms. Hong would be interested. A decision had been made, and the girl was going to be cast in the lead role. She had no idea at that moment that it was about her. It seemed as if she was ready to burst into tears from such joy. The offer was certainly a fine one, but why had they taken her? Did something unforeseen happen? Even if she was unconscious, she wouldn't forget that they wouldn't even want her for supporting roles. But the producer said that nothing unusual happened, and the girl was just recommended. It was a good opportunity, and such chances don't come often. After the contract is signed, she will be able to find out who recommended her. The contract was completely ordinary. Shin didn't see anything suspicious about it. Judging from the script, the movie was also the most ordinary, but recent events popped up in her mind. Not long ago, there was no work for her, and now this. Mo Xiaoyu didn't understand what she was waiting for. After all, her sister had said that opportunities like this couldn't be ignored. These words brought her back to reality, so she immediately took the chance and signed the contract. Sister Shin took the job, but the caustic smiles on the faces of her superiors kept her on her toes. The producer immediately contacted Mr. Hong with the message that the matter had been resolved. From behind the awning came the very man who had recommended Ms. Hong. Shin hadn't expected to see him, and certainly didn't want to. She was uncomfortable with any interaction with this man, much less accepting any help from him, despite the fact that he was her father. He was glad that this contract had been made. Mr. Hong was pleased. Now everything was decided and was going according to his father's plan, but Sister Shin wasn't satisfied with this outcome. She didn't know what the hell he was doing in her life. Her father was glad that the girl hadn't forgotten everything he had taught her as a child. The punch was really good. It was a perfectly legal contract, and it was effective immediately. The father hoped his daughter wouldn't break it. She wouldn't have enough money to cover the losses anyway. Just what this old man was trying to accomplish, Shin still didn't understand, for she realized how strained the relationship between them was. He only laughed in response. Ms. Hong had signed a contract, and now he wanted her to fulfill it. Her eyes filled with tears, and at that moment she felt resentment and disappointment. She was disappointed that her father had deceived her. Her father saw her as a wretch, for she cursed him and beat him, her own father. But as a child she was very sweet, and she was always clinging to him every day. Mr. Hong also wanted to know where that kid who was good at fighting was. He hoped that Shin had taken Mo Xiaoyu with him. But on the other hand, he didn't care if he wanted to be an actor in this movie or not. It was then that Mo Xiaoyu finally spoke up after all this time, surprising his uncle. Mr. Hong didn't even know that Mo Xiaoyu had hidden potential. The guy seemed to have now realized that it was that unspoken rule, but this nonsense specifically made the girl angry. She was ready to unleash her anger on this whole studio. Now it didn't matter what the rule was. No one could renege on this contract, and now the girl must prepare and follow to the sound studio with her father. The girl had already signed a contract. Due to her inexperience in the business, she was now cornered. Mr. Hong really hoped that he would have a chance to catch up. The ward was already rushing to his master to report something important. The information he received made Hong Jung realize that he would have to go to the Dragon Horn and meet his so-called old friend again. Mr. Hong immediately went to the skyscraper of the Dragon Horn building, heading down the corridor of one of the floors. It was impossible not to notice a piece of art hanging on the wall. It was an authentic work by Claude Monet. It was amazing that they put such a masterpiece in an ordinary hallway. But it spoke of their lack of education and their simple-mindedness. It's been a long time since Mr. Hong has seen this man. Even still, they didn't exchange any pleasantries. Perhaps there was something that had bonded them strongly in the past. They used to be buddies who hunted treasures all over the world, and now this man was president of the eastern branch of the company. But for some reason, the former comrade did not recognize his status as president. He thought of himself as an ordinary employee who worked for others. He also admired Hong Jung's leisurely and carefree life. The former buddy really regretted what happened in the past. However, Hong managed to become one of the most successful businessmen in the provincial capital, but they both knew how deep the company's roots went. Local big shots like Hong were nothing to the company, he thought. Mr. Hong's modesty was so pleasing to the interlocutor. After all, if he wanted to come out of the shadows and return to the old business, Hong Jung would always be welcome here. Only his old bones are too brittle for that kind of work. But anyway, he was interested in something else. He knew this guy worked for this company. There were so many people working for this company. What a shame the president couldn't know everyone. But breaking the comedy was pointless with Hong Jung. They had grown and prospered on stealing and selling jewelry. Because of this, they were tightly entrenched in the circle of treasure hunters. And that man was one of the best in the business. How could one not know him? And now such an accident could put Mr. Hong's daughter in great danger. The president tried to convince the gentleman that it was indeed an accident, and this man would not disturb Shin again. That was good to hear, or it wouldn't have been good to go into conflict with the company. Hongjun was about to say goodbye, but he had to delay. In his rage, he bothered to break the table. As the old saying goes, a score is a score. The president insisted that his old friend pay for the breakage. You'd think this man would be a cheapskate. But this desk is a real antique, having once stood in William Chambers' office. Right on this table was written, King in yellow. That's why this table is very expensive. There wasn't enough cash, so Hongjun decided to just buy this table out by dropping money into the account. By the way, as an old friend, the president will give a discount on this table. Raz suddenly calmed down. The interlocutor dared to give advice for the good of Hongjun. It amounted to a man not to cross the company's path in the future. It was personal advice from an old friend to a friend and nothing more. Only Mr. Hong did not react to these words in any way, and was even skeptical. This guy was making it harder for him to do business with. It was finally a day off, but Shin still woke up in the morning out of habit. Memories of the jewel thief would not leave her, and passed a shiver through her body. He was disgusting and made her nervous. All night Shin twirled around and couldn't sleep, and it was only towards morning that she managed to get some sleep. Xiaoyu decided to take his sister out for a wonderful breakfast, so he offered to both go upstairs and eat together. Sister Shin's clothes looked like a handkerchief last time. It was strange to see a girl wearing such clothes. And as soon as the girl turned red, her brother thought she had a cold. Welcome to Xiaoyu's house. His pigeon breakfast was about to be finished. Speaking of smelling delicious, Xiaoyu was enjoying the cooking process. The meat was already fried and Xiaoyu invited his sister to eat. But to her horror, she noticed that they were Uncle Liu's carrier pigeons from the neighboring district. Xiaoyu caught the pigeons this morning and they were delicious. But Sister Shin was already getting tired of his antics, even though she realized that he was not yet adapted to this life. Right now, she didn't even want to talk to him. Xiaoyu was like a child, upset that she didn't like her breakfast, and after all, pigeons were hard to catch, but he got another bump for it. She angrily explained that Xiaoyu had stolen those pigeons from another person, which was illegal. She could only hope that Uncle Liu wouldn't understand. Did that mean that Xiaoyu could only hunt street cats and dogs now? Besides, yesterday he had seen a very fat striped cat that he had already been eyeing for himself. But no cats and no dogs. Cats are really cute. How could a guy even eat them? Apparently, Xiaoyu still has a lot of explaining to do about life in today's society. It turned out that Xiaoyu can't hunt at all. At this time, hunting is a fun for rich people. If a guy really wants to hunt, he can catch fish. Unless, of course, he's fishing in a private pond. And as for a lovely breakfast, better just go to the store and get some noodles. But the girl had completely forgotten that today was her first day of work. There was still time, and she wasn't even late. As soon as she arrived, all the girls pounced on her with questions. The big boss wanted to make Shin a superstar. She was jealous that she was now the female lead, and jealous that she was attracting men and had the opportunity to be famous. Of course, there were rumors among the girls that she had just sucked up to a rich old man and ended up becoming conceited. In life, Shin looked boring, and she was no different from other ordinary girls. The gossipers thought that she wouldn't succeed without help. She just hated the old man for that, because now there was unflattering gossip about her, and on top of that, father would be able to manipulate her contractually. She was ready to tear this contract to shreds, but that would be pointless because it's just a copy. If she liked tearing up copies, her father could give her plenty of them. He'd already put the original in a safe deposit box, so it was useless to get it out. Her father had twisted her arms, and now she was asking for Xiaoyu's help to beat this old man, just like that jewel thief. It was wrong of him, after all. Uncle Hong is her father. Piety is the most important of all virtues. Xiaoyu couldn't do that. But since when did he become so correct? Mr. Hong really didn't like this guy following him around, since he hadn't signed anything with him. So he asked not to follow them, and not to interfere with their work. The father was trusting that he boy would not be able to pursue his daughter. After all, he could hire several organizations to protect his daughter. But he didn't want to waste time for his sake. He couldn't get through. Security wouldn't let him in. Plus he had a job with the previous director. And now he was needed for a few scenes. Time passed quickly at work. The evening didn't wait. All the actors were about to have a drink together, but Xiaoyu hurried home. Seeing the armor the warrior had on the wall, Xiaoyu thought that this armor was most likely made by a foreign artisan. When Xiaoyu fought that mouser, his tremendous energy burst out from the weapon that was in his body, but that energy wasn't there originally. Perhaps it was placed in the weapon when he was turned into a terracotta warrior. If it was taken from his own body, then Mo Xiaoyu couldn't use it again. Knight's Fist, one of the 3 secret Maul techniques, trains the body and refines Qi. Mo Xiaoyu had mastered it very well. He had also managed to conquer the secrets of nature, but he knew absolutely nothing about spirit purification talismans. This powerful force was released through a combination of nature secret techniques and spirit purification talismans, and Mo Xiaoyu had no idea how to do it again. If he had known how to release that power last time, he would have easily finished off his enemy. Some shouting from behind the buildings caught his attention. A woman's voice was yelling this and that. Of course, Mo Xiaoyu couldn't pass by, and when he came to the source of the sound, he saw such a picture. The girl asked these men to give her a couple more days because all these days she was trying to get money, and it was not enough to pay off the debt. But the men were extremely impatient. They had already waited a long time, and the girl was wasting their time. So why shouldn't this girl work in a bar, especially with a figure and face like that? The situation became clear. There was no point in listening any further. Mo Xiaoyu immediately rushed to defend his work colleague. Tang Jiaodi immediately recognized this guy. In the modern world, there were also bastards who bullied girls. Unfortunately, Mo Xiaoyu hurriedly reminded that they had worked together, and that he was the main understudy. But it was pointless since the girl remembered him perfectly. The strangers immediately thought that this boy had crawled out of a martial arts school. He did not inspire fear in these men. One of them had boxed and even competed in the eliminations at the famous White Tiger Championships. Therefore, he was confident that he had the strength to squash this boy like a bug. But it wouldn't be that easy. The man was too self-confident, and there was a price to pay for that self-confidence. Instead of hitting the boy, he sealed his fist into the wall, thus crushing his bones in his fingers. The man's co-worker wanted to deal with the guy thanks to his knife, but no sooner had he pulled it out than Mo Xiaoyu immediately took the knife away. And of course he threw it to the side. Where was that big guy? He didn't want to kill, so he just wanted to scare him. What the young man was doing reminded the man of the actions in the movie The Legend of Li Blade. These guys were very weak, and yet dared to bully an innocent girl. In the Qin dynasty, they would have been sued to be dismembered by 5 horses. But it wasn't like that. The men had just come to collect a debt and wanted what the girl owed them. Tang Jiaodi's father had racked up a lot of gambling debts and ran away, and it was up to her to pay. The man was very strict in such matters. The girl did not pay the debt and did not even want to accept the easy job he offered her. With the meager paycheck at the studio, she'd never be able to give the money away, but working in a nightclub didn't impress her much. Mo Xiaoyu pondered. The girl didn't want to work in the nightclub because it was very difficult, most likely. But since she's in debt, she has to pay back this money. She was very impressionable and didn't even understand how Mo Xiaoyu could say such words. This girl was supposed to pay her debt today, but she kept putting it off until tomorrow. But she couldn't do that all the time. The men would find her anyway, but it would make her feel worse. Mo Xiaoyu still stood there puzzled because he didn't understand the girl's reaction and why she ran away in tears. But the men's reaction was quite clear. Sister Xin decided to treat her brother to dinner. She had a hard day today. Turns out her unfit father actually wanted to be an actor too. He dragged his daughter to Mangoshan Mountain to inspect the locations for the movie. But what Mr. Hong wanted to film was still unknown. Xin hadn't read the script, but she saw that her father was very happy that he was writing and directing the movie himself. It must be cool to be rich. Sister Xin decided to inquire if Mo Xiaoyu had messed up today, which she really hoped he had. The guy began to remember the events of tonight, and decided to ask if it was difficult for girls to work in a nightclub. Such a question seemed to turn the girl upside down. Was it really enough for Mo Xiaoyu to start acting like her no-good father? But before yelling at him, she wanted to know why he was interested in such things. So he told her the events of tonight and that the girl had run away in tears. Xin wasn't surprised that the young man had brought someone to tears. However, she explained that it was difficult to determine how hard this job was, but it was definitely not very pleasant for the girls. The next working day, Mo Xiaoyu apologized to Tang Jiaodi for insulting her by thinking that she was afraid of the hard work in the nightclub. Talon hurried to stop him, for she really didn't want others to hear about it. Finally got away from all my co-workers to a quieter place. I could exhale with peace of mind. Mo Xiaoyu once again tried to apologize to the girl for his ignorance that he had offended her innocence. But really, she should be the one apologizing. Yesterday, Mo Xiaoyu helped her and she just ran away without thanking him. Tang Jiaodi wasn't mad at him at all. Yesterday, she was just scared because she's a crybaby. Mo Xiaoyu's words were strange, it seemed to the girl. Words like innocence sounded like he was some ancient person. But his sister told him that if he wanted to fit into society, no one should find out that he was from the Qin dynasty. So it was logical to say that he had this dialect and try to get rid of it. In the early days, Tan Zhaodi too worked on her dialect when she found herself here. Mo Xiaoyu remembered that the girl needed money, so he offered his own, and he decided to give her all the money he had earned. Of course, at first she refused, but the guy was very persuasive, because he was not poor, and the girl needed them more. Tang Zhaodi felt indebted to him already, and now he's sticking money in his pocket. She couldn't understand why Mo Xiaoyu was so kind to her. Was he really in love with her? She shouldn't have thought that. Things should be much simpler. Mo Xiaoyu was younger than this girl, and he was probably just a naive guy. Just thinking about silly things couldn't be endless either. You had to work. As soon as she came out of her hiding place, she was already being searched for. That Talon girl was always scolding her, and it was to be expected that it would happen again. Before she could be scolded, she hurriedly apologized. The girls didn't care at all about her apology, for her mother was now looking for her and wanted to see her. Of course, these girls did not deny themselves the pleasure of throwing a few caustic words at Tang Zhaodi and despised her in every possible way, and in turn, she'd fall for it and try to poke him. She was a huge fan of this girl because one day she was told that she was as beautiful as she was, and also that she had the potential to become a superstar. Of course, this inspired her to chase her dream and come here. But those words were definitely unnecessary for a callous girl like Talon. She despised Tang Zhaodi even more after those words. The mother had already searched everywhere for her daughter and finally saw her sitting on the ground. Tang Zhaodi is just chilling while her parents are organizing her wedding. Shame on her. Her parents had been looking for her in town for weeks, but she didn't pick up the phone and was eating up all her money, hoping to become an actress. What a fool she is. She should get married and think of her brother. He has nothing to give his wife in dowry. She was raised for nothing. Tang Zhaodi's mother gave her daughter a concert, and all eyes were on them, but they seemed to be used to her mother's antics. Another village girl's dreams were shattered by family worries. It was very difficult for such people to gain family recognition until they became famous. But was Mo Xiaoyu's sister Mo Xiaoyu also being pestered by relatives? Unfortunately, all people are the same, but they lived different lives, and this girl's family just didn't work out. Mo Xiaoyu could understand that this hectic generation of people lived a difficult life, but the break was over, and they had to start shooting a new scene. Mo Xiaoyu has to change into a dress and replace Talon. The girl found it difficult to resist her mother's instructions and had to return to the old carriage house where they lived. But as soon as she returned, she immediately ran away. Why? Why was it that fate had been so cruel to her? She ran and asked herself this question. She was to be married to a mine owner who lived in their village. Her parents had already arranged everything, and he had spared no expense for Tan Zhaodi because he liked her picture so much. The groom would give her a house and a car as a dowry, and her mother couldn't find a place to be happy. But the daughter only roared. She was already in her 20s, but she couldn't even study properly. She couldn't do anything at the sewing factory, and she kept ranting about the movies. In fact, it was her mother who forced her to drop out after Tan Zhaodi graduated from high school, and then made her go to work to raise money for her younger brother's university. Tan Zhaodi couldn't live her own life and was some kind of thing. To top it off, her mother took all her credit cards and passport. She was in a desperate situation and didn't know what to do. It's night and raining outside. There's not even anywhere to go. But even at a time like this, there were people who had a thing for her. A certain gentleman noticed that the girl was completely soaked. Tang Zhaodi didn't even notice it. She was completely immersed in her own problems. The gentleman's car was across the street. He was kind enough to drop her off wherever she said. I didn't want to believe it was fate. Whatever it was, there was no way she was going to accept it. Tang Zhaodi was very cold, which she no longer hid, so she asked me to take her somewhere warm. The man was already excited and happily agreed, and the girl at this point thought that now she had really learned something bad. The action was just like in the movies. In the scenario, he actually went to take a shower, and the girl was waiting for him. She never thought money could be obtained so easily. But Tan Zhaodi was caught out as soon as she took the wallet out of his pants. Maybe she was trying to con him out of his money, but it didn't work. Tan Zhaodi will return the money, only beg me not to call the police, but he'd never give a pretty girl like that to the police. She just needs to keep her head down and let the man have his fun. He wanted to be nice, but apparently she didn't. Suddenly, she didn't even realize how it had come to this or what she had done wrong. The man started undressing her, even though she asked him not to. He assumed that the girl would also ask for it. But he wasn't going to stop and pounced on her like a ravenous beast. She wanted money? Now the man's gonna pay her back in a big way. The more the girl twitched, the more it turned the man on. but more serious measures had to be taken or he wouldn't let up. He didn't feel worse after such a blow. He was only angry and ready to strangle this wench. Luckily for her, she managed to control herself and continue hitting him with that plate. But I think she overdid it. There was blood all over the place and the man fainted as if dead. It looked like she had really killed him. But she didn't feel guilty because she didn't want to. Of course she did. It was all his fault, leaving her no choice. Tan Zhaodi had to get out of here. She didn't want to stay here another minute. It turned out to be worse than it was. And why is that? The world was very unfair and unjust to her. She was once again left on the street and kept trying to answer her questions, the answers to which were not coming. Tan Zhaodi had always been good. Everyone loved her, and it wasn't her fault. Why couldn't she live a normal life? She was reminded of those words when she'd been told she looked like the actress Talon. Their lives were radically different. She was hounded by the paparazzi, and here she was stuck in a factory sewing clothes day and night. Dreams remained dreams, and there was no more strength to endure such injustice. Her negative emotions were so sweet, just exquisite food for a certain creature. Tang Zhaodi was a true gift of fate. Where did he come from, and is he real? It all seemed like an illusion, including him walking on water. But he was the real deal, and the greedy people called him a producer. Does the producer really work in the movie industry? Either way, Tan Zhaodi is no longer her old self, for she has just killed a man. But it didn't matter to the producer at all. She killed him. So what? How can this stranger take murder so lightly? Tang Zhaodi had had enough of this, so she decided to kill herself. Her parents were right. People are not equal to each other. Maybe she was cursed to live a life of misery. Since that happened, the producer asked for permission to give her a happy future. The producer wanted to give her a special gift that came from her most secret desires. This gift will grow with her obsession. Without explaining anything else, with a touch of his finger, he gave her the full transformation as promised. The next morning she woke up suddenly, but not in the street. It was a 5-star hotel, certainly not the cheapest. It felt like yesterday was a dream. This hotel had a lot of expensive cosmetics, but Tang Zhaodi couldn't afford it, and her face was like talons. All that was left of the old Tang Zhaodi was her soul. As soon as someone knocked on the door, she assumed it was probably the strange man she'd met yesterday. But no, it was Agent Talon. Just what is she doing here? She apologized to Lo before starting the conversation, for she was here completely by accident and realized it when she woke up. Only Agent Luo didn't understand anything, for her mistress came back here drunk after last night's party. The young master from Zhongda Industries invited her over, and she returned to the room after midnight. Luo thought that Talon was very tired, and so she left here to rest. Besides, the director had just called. He was wondering how much rest time was needed. The girl was already expected. It was the day of the filming of very important scenes, and they couldn't do without the lead actress. Lo wondered what had happened to Miss Talon, for she was not herself, but perhaps she had not sobered up yet. The girl needed time to realize what had happened to her. She hardly realized that she was now in the main role and tried to create the whole chronology of yesterday's events. The picture that emerged was this, that this was the very gift that the strange man had promised her. Her soul was moved into Talon's body, into the body of the girl she adored so much, and the life she wanted to live. But if it's in her body, what happened to Talon? It was the most ordinary day for Mo Xiaoyu. He had filming again, and while the lead actress was away, they could play cards with their co-workers. But she had finally arrived, which meant they could get to work. The girl was more worried about being discovered and realizing she was a different person. Superstars were always late and stuntmen had to wait a long time. Talon was the first lady in the country, thanks to her popularity. The director was harsh with everyone, but he didn't have the guts to bicker with this girl. He needed Talon to ensure the movie's popularity. Tang Zhaodi couldn't pass by without looking back, which of course Mo Xiaoyu noticed, and now he was wondering why she was looking at him. And Tang Zhaodi in turn was worried, lest he should recognize the real her. She had to calm down after all. She was Talon now, and she had nothing to fear. Tang Zhaodi had been watching her for a long time, so she should definitely have no problems. The director was pleased that the lead actress had finally arrived, and that meant work could begin. So he quickly gathered all the stuntmen and the cameraman. Tang Zhaodi didn't even know her script, so she asked for a little time to repeat the script, but all she had to do was shine with her beauty. Just like before. She could just open her mouth and say things like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Everything would still be fixed in the final stage of filming. Tang Zhaodi had completely forgotten about it as she was nervous. She used to criticize such things, but now she was very happy that there was such an opportunity. The actors didn't need to know the lines and memorization either, so the difficulty of the job went down from hellish to normal. Everything was filmed the first time. The daytime filming was done. Later they would film some night scenes, but for now, they could rest. Tanjoti was just glad that no one realized that she was a different person. Mistress Talon did a good job. Her chaise was ready. The girls wanted to massage her shoulders, but it wasn't necessary. It was possible to relax, because the scene was already shot. The girls were thinking that Talon had gotten into the role. One of these girls was just a maid. She didn't even have any lines. But if she was good at sucking up to Talon, who could ask the director to give her 1 or 2 lines? Compared to yesterday, their attitudes have changed very drastically towards Tanjoti. If they knew who Talon really was, they must have beaten her to death. We can't let anyone suspect anything. While resting, she was disturbed by Lord Ma's call. Lord Ma is the eldest son of the owner of Zhangde. There were rumors that this man was courting Talon. What to say to him was unclear, so Tanjoti decided to resort to the usual, "How are you?" which offended Lord Ma a little, since they had spent quite a good time together yesterday, and he was no stranger to Talon. And by what he meant when he said, "had a good time together," one could only puzzle over it. Lord Ma really wanted to see the girl today. Everything was ready. All that was missing was her. But Tanjoti was in a hurry to refuse, as she had a shoot today and a night scene planned. In truth, she just didn't want to be dragged into something like having a good time, so she hurriedly disconnected. The girls kept sucking up to Talon, hopefully to get a little bit of her favor and attention, and poked her in every way possible to do so. The director praised her too, as she acted very well in all the scenes. But the work didn't end there, it just kept going. Tangjouti's whole life was down the drain, and only now being in the body of her idol could she enjoy it just a little bit. They had almost similar names, even their looks were the same, but they lived very different lives. She was immersed in these thoughts so much that Mo Xiaoyu's voice seemed to bring her back to reality. He wondered where Tanjoti had gone. A whole day had passed, but she was nowhere to be seen, and no one saw her. In addition, the girls had still managed to reprimand Mo Xiaoyu for his impolite use of you. A few days ago, Tanjoti had gotten into trouble, and today, she didn't show up again, so Mo Xiaoyu was a bit worried about her. But there was no need to worry, because her mother took her away, and quite possibly, they went back to their village. Working in the movie industry was not easy. There were many naive girls who wanted to fulfill their dreams but were forced to leave the movie, just like Tanjoti. Mo Xiaoyu didn't even know that she had gone home with her mother, but he was thankful for this information. Tanjoti didn't expect anyone to ask or worry for her, so now she was wondering about it. So why was he so worried about her? The Tanjoti that Mo Xiaoyu knew had become a murderer. The next day, filming started again. Tanjoti played superbly, then impressed the audience of her colleagues. That was the day the movie filming was finished. Ms. Talon's last scene was delightful. She played even better than before, as the director thought. Tanjoti was happy that she was doing as well as expected. It meant she was as good as Talon. All she needed was a chance to prove herself. She was unspeakably happy for that night's producer. Her girls were sure that she would definitely get the Scarlet Bird for Best Actress for tonight's game. Talon's participation in the fashion series elevated her name to the status of First Lady. She was at the top of search queries. These girls used to tease her as a redneck, but as soon as her name and appearance changed, they immediately changed their attitude. Tanjoti kept wondering if Mo Xiaoyu realized who she really was. The job was finished, so everyone was getting their paychecks. So now we have to find a new job? In honor of this, Mo Xiaoyu's colleagues offered to let Mo Xiaoyu have a drink before parting ways. But remembering the past events, he decided that he would not drink modern alcohol again. Mo Xiaoyu will have nothing to do after work. He can't hunt because it's illegal. And after all, he used to be a good hunter. It was very unfortunate that hunting was forbidden in this world. Mo Xiaoyu's attention was caught by a police car that arrived on the set. It was the same policeman they had met once before. Thanks to that night, he had risen up the career ladder after all. But Mo Xiaoyu still felt bad for knocking him out back then. But the policeman, on the contrary, was very grateful to him because if they had not solved the case together, he would not have been promoted to a respected detective. Nevertheless, the perpetrator escaped from the hospital that same night. But the policeman vowed to catch him and bring him to justice. Now they had come for a different matter. He was interested in whether Mo Xiaoyu had met this girl. The detective knew that she probably worked here. Mo Xiaoyu immediately recognized her physique, for it was Tanjoti. Police learned that yesterday she was in a hotel with a man. Cameras recorded that she left the hotel in a hurry and stayed there for a very short time. This morning, Hotel staff discovered the man's body. He had been brutally murdered. She's now the prime suspect. Mo Xiaoyu couldn't believe these words because Tang Jiaodi was a very cute girl and she couldn't be a murderer. But would she still be a nice girl even if she defrosted someone's head? People immediately started making noise as soon as they heard this news, but Tang Jiaodi seemed about to faint from it. The police got here very quickly, but what should she do? Anyway, she's the first lady now. They won't be able to recognize who she really is. The investigation was just beginning and Mo Xiaoyu decided to go on record that he was acquainted with Tang Jiaodi. But what if they just made a mistake? There couldn't have been a mistake, because the cameras recorded that she was the only one who went into the victim's room. Judging by the panic in which she ran away, there was no doubt she knew what had happened there. The proof is undeniable. But Mo Xiaoyu must be fated to be involved with the police. This was the third case in a few days. Why don't they meet a detective already? The senior detective started asking around. People were eager to testify about Tang Jiaodi. It was Talon's turn. The detective's daughter was a fan of hers, so the detective asked for an autograph before beginning his interrogation. Once everyone had been questioned, the detectives could leave. If anyone knew anything about Tang Jiaodi, the detective asked them to call him. Mo Xiaoyu still couldn't understand where the truth was and where the lies were. He could hardly believe that this girl had killed a person, and the director wished he'd fired that girl sooner. As they say, the cat hid its claws. Sometimes Tang Jiaodi liked to call herself by the name Talon. The agent was very worried about it, so it wouldn't affect her mistress's reputation in any way. Everyone thought she was just a fan, because her whole room was covered with posters and photos of Talon. Who would have thought that this girl would also go to a hotel with a man? Not the first time she did that. How did she feel now? Tang Jiaodi remembered how everyone talked about her, and now she was hearing all the rumors about herself now, while holding herself courageously and not giving herself away. But it was so hard. She was ready to cry. Instead, someone was yelling about how she wasn't what the girl said she was. It was Mo Xiaoyu who had such an opinion of Tang Jiaodi. This girl may have been involved in the murder, but Tang Jiaodi was definitely not bad like they said. Mo Xiaoyu had misunderstood her before, but now he had drastically changed his opinion. Tang Jiaodi was not the kind of girl who would sell herself for money. She was in big trouble, but she wasn't going to sell herself. If the girls could help it, they could at least shut their mouths and not say anything bad about her like the others do. Mo Xiaoyu headed towards his home. He wasn't in the mood, and he wasn't going to the farewell party either. But the director was outraged by this. Who does this boy think he is? He wasn't even invited anywhere. Talon also decided not to go to this party, which surprised everyone. She also asked me not to follow her. The agent couldn't understand what was going on, and couldn't resist Mistress's order either. Everyone did as she asked, and she walked away. Just like last time, only Mo Xiaoyu took her seriously. All these people hated her. Even the family used Tang Jiaodi for their own purposes. Only him. Only his eyes saw things as they were, without any arrogance or contempt. This simple guy is not the type to judge people by their looks, and Tang Jiaodi couldn't let him despise her, not even a new her. She could tolerate hatred from anyone but him. Among the crowd, she tried to find Mo Xiaoyu, but her appearance attracted people much more. She ran and still managed to catch up with him. Tang Jiaodi was very grateful to the producer for his gift that day, but the universe was giving her a far more valuable gift. The girl was extremely happy to have met Mo Xiaoyu. This guy was a ray of light in her thorny life. Mo Xiaoyu was already thinking that what he said had really hurt her. But she wanted to apologize to him. People could not just pass by, because on the street where they ordinary people pass every day, suddenly appeared the First Lady, Talon, goddess. But what is she doing here? She's a dream girl, but she still had to hang on to men in tears. She should have a boyfriend by now, but she's still looking for love. The appearance of the star in the middle of an ordinary street caused quite a sensation. People started taking out their cameras, taking pictures, and filming the broadcasts. Tang Jiaodi's body had changed, but she was still so impressionable. No wonder she was now hugging Mo Xiaoyu so tightly regardless of the crowd and her position. Realizing her behavior, she immediately peeled away from the guy and apologized. But what do we do now? They are just co-workers, not even friends. When the job ended, they would stop communicating, and the girl didn't want that outcome. If things were over, Mo Xiaoyu wanted to go home because Sister Xin was waiting for him there. Tang Jiaodi didn't know what to do, but she tried her best to stop him from leaving. Meanwhile, a Lamborghini Gallardo raced onto the public street. It's that guy Talon! Looks like he saw the live broadcast and immediately rushed here to see everything with his own eyes. He assumed that Talon had been avoiding dating these past couple days because she had found a new friend. Now he wanted to meet him. Now the questions began for Mo Xiaoyu. who he was and how he met Talon. Mo Xiaoyu decided to tell it like it was, that he had been her understudy a few times. But who was this man? Ma Xian also introduced himself, but also caustically expressed that Talon was not very demanding to her friends. Of course, Mo Xiaoyu hadn't heard anything about this person, but the man reminded him that he was the one who was sponsoring the drama that was being filmed. Ma Xian of Zhangda's company is one of the 4 aristocrats of Ye, along with other rich, influential teenagers. Of course, he has tons of money and power. It pissed him off that Talon had been dropping his calls for the last couple days. He seemed to be pretty close to the girl. The 4 aristocrats are they as beautiful as the past aristocrats, Ji Chiken, Pinyuan, Mengcheng, and Xinling? Lord Ma might have assumed that they were similar. If that was the case, were they hiring 3,000 people each for the sake of their own country? Just what was the guy Lord Ma was talking about? Didn't understand at all. But Mo Xiaoyu understood. It was just the underestimated fame and the lack of the spirit of the 4 aristocrats, or what one might call wealth and power. Ma was just a businessman, unless he made a deal the size of the sky like Liu Buwei. Liu Buwei was a Chinese businessman and political figure of the Qin state. But Lord Ma didn't know this, and he felt like a fool for not knowing all the names Mo Xiaoyu had listed for him. Mo Xiaoyu just wanted to show him that he didn't reach the level of aristocrats from the war period. Was there any other reason why Mo Xiaoyu should know his name? It doesn't seem to have happened. Because all the guy was asking for was for him to let him go, as he was in pain. How could he even have the nerve to bother such an important person? It's not nice. However, it was not surprising that Mo Xiaoyu knew how to fight. After all, he was an understudy in Chinese opera, but still, it was Ma Xian who started first. A rich man like this didn't need any of this. He had enough power to make Mo Xiaoyu suffer. It was already late, so Mo Xiaoyu decided to finally leave. Surely his sister was waiting for him. Tong Jodi, on the other hand, had to go with her boyfriend. They were going to have a serious conversation, but she didn't want to go with him. For such disobedience, she got a slap from him. You see, he was acting like a gentleman, and the blow was so strong that the girl began to fall. But luckily, Mo Xiaoyu didn't go far, and managed to catch Talon. He wanted to be nice to everyone. This guy had pissed him off. Compared to Mo Xiaoyu, Ma Xian was just a dead man in battle, and he clearly didn't want to fight, so he only threatened with his power. No words had no effect on Mo Xiaoyu, as everything had already been said. The rich humiliated the poor. People with status make fun of people without it. If it was Big Brother, he probably would have calmed you down first. But he met him, and Mo Xiaoyu is still young. Today was supposed to be the end of filming by now. Xin and Mo Xiaoyu would be celebrating Xiaoyu's infusion into the modern world. Sis Blue has been slamming all evening over the food and has finally cooked her best dishes. She was very good at household chores and was happy that she could do it all. Xin hadn't found a boyfriend yet, and she was already being chased and called a daughter-in-law. They were dating for the first time. But could it be considered anything romantic? Mo Xiaoyu kept calling her daughter-in-law, so where is the romance in that? Mo Xiaoyu suited her more like a younger brother who was accidentally stolen. He was looking for love, just like a newborn chicken. Think of the sun as it appears. Mo Xiaoyu seems to be back. Sister Xin immediately rushed to open the door, but when she saw something she didn't expect to see, she froze in question. Mo Xiaoyu decided to bring along a troubled companion who felt the awkwardness of the situation. But Mo Xiaoyu behaved as usual. He immediately smelled all the smells from the kitchen and couldn't wait until they sat down at the table. Sister Xin decided to start by borrowing this guy for a second, for an explanation. She wanted to know why he brought this girl and why a star like Talon. Before getting a bump on his forehead, Mo Xiaoyu hurriedly explained what had happened today. Mo Xiaoyu didn't skimp on the details and explained everything as it was, so that the girl would understand him. While Mo Xiaoyu was trying to explain everything, Tang Jiaodi pondered over whether it was right for her to be here. Realizing what this was about, Sister Xin could draw her own conclusions. But not getting a bump, it was impossible in any case. After all, if that guy came to their house, Xin immediately said that she wouldn't protect Mo Xiaoyu. All Mo Xiaoyu wanted to do was to help Talon. Xin, in turn, found the star charming, but couldn't think that she had such a complicated life. It would be indecent to kick the guest out, so Xin kindly introduced herself. And Tang Jiaodi, of course, already remembered her, and also remembered how the girl had signed a contract with a very cool uncle. But that was the last thing the girl wanted to bring up, because those papers were still a setup. Xin didn't want to admit it, but she dared to say that the uncle was her father. An awkward pause hung between them. But soon her reaction to the contract explained everything, and they found the situation quite funny. Shin didn't know what to talk about with the popular idol as she had seen her on the set several times. Tang Jiaodi couldn't believe that Mo Xiaoyu was living with such a beautiful girl, and that she cooked for him and waited for him after work. Tang Jiaodi wanted to refuse dinner, but her rumbling stomach gave her away and there was no way to leave. She was happy to spend time with these people, though. At the table, she realized how good a relationship these two had. Ma Xian had poured a lot of money into this drama. Shin could guess that if Talon pissed him off, it would be hard for her to continue working. But that didn't bother her much right now. The girl really enjoyed Sister Shin's food. What about Mo Xiaoyu? He's already rude to the principal anyway. Sis was waiting for an explanation as to what he'd done. Sister Shin was horrified at the news that Deputy Table Talon was the prime suspect in the murder. It was hard for her to believe it. Though she had never really interacted with her, Tang Jiaodi seemed like a nice girl. Mo Xiaoyu was of the same thought and didn't believe it. But now she was missing, and Xiaoyu was even thinking of looking for her when the time came. Tang Jiaodi was grateful for his trust, but if she let him go on a search, she would be in trouble. A lot has happened during Sister Shin's absence. But will Talon part with Ma Xian? This question put Tang Jiaodi in a stupor. She didn't consider Ma Xian as her boyfriend, of course, and there was no one to break up with. Whatever the real Talon thought now, Tang Jiaodi didn't want Mo Xiaoyu to misunderstand anything. Sis Blue in turn hurriedly made up for this awkward situation, in case she was really mistaken. People love to spread rumors. Tang Jiaodi decided to use all her lying abilities, and said that they had met several times to talk about financing, and now Ma Xian didn't want to fall behind. It was a good thing Mo Xiaoyu was around, otherwise she wouldn't have known what to do. Right now, people lived in a fair society and Talon was a powerful person, so she shouldn't be afraid of Ma Xian. Tang Jiaodi was grateful for their concern, but wanted to temporarily hire Mo Xiaoyu as her bodyguard. Mo Xiaoyu needed to seriously ponder about this, and Tang Jiaodi in turn was looking for a normal reason to get close to this guy. Or did she not stand a chance? The next morning, Mr. Hong decided to visit his daughter. From the doorstep, she wondered what was wrong, because it's not every day you see your father home for a visit. Especially since Shin told the boss not to come here, but I could tell he was on business. Mr. Hong was very much concerned about the recent events involving Mo Xiaoyu, who he thought was his daughter's boyfriend. Shin was very much surprised because it was so much like a movie. This video went viral. Mo Xiaoyu was living with Mr. Hong's daughter, and he was hitting on a popular star. Father wanted to find this idiot immediately, and this was said by a man who cheated on his wife after he became rich. But this is different. Why was Shin angry anyway? Regardless, Mr. Hong wanted to immediately teach this asshole a lesson. The only thing Shin had asked was to stay out of her room, but Hoon was annoyed that his daughter was constantly defending him, and Mo Xiaoyu really pissed him off. Only what he saw in Shin's room was not the person he expected to see. However, Tang Jiaodi didn't expect to see this man either. It was a very awkward situation. Mr. Hong hurriedly introduced himself. He couldn't believe that it was Talon, and that the girl in the video was her. The situation formed in his mind. Mo Xiaoyu had brought Talon here, and yet he was dating two girls at once. But that was enough. This vulgar old man was already annoying Shin. She didn't like him barging in here and staring at the other girl's charms. Shin awkwardly apologized for her father and tried to get him out of the house. There was some special freshness in this morning heat that Mo Xiaoyu enjoyed. Looking down, he spotted his uncle's car. It wasn't hard to tell because he preferred practical black cars. As soon as he ran into the apartment, the first thing he did was ask how his favorite uncle was doing. But he didn't appreciate his sincerity and started accusing him of everything and calling him a lousy boy. Only the penultimate word he didn't understand. And he didn't understand what had happened at all. To keep the conflict from developing, everyone decided to sit down in the same room and explain themselves. Mr. Hong turned out to be a bit imaginative, and now there was nothing he could do to Mo Xiaoyu. Mo Xiaoyu looked really good in the video. No wonder it's so hype. One of the main principles of Moism is to maintain loyalty and respect for the hero. But Hong thought this was too naive. The boy took everything very easily, but Ma Jian would not give up so easily. It had been a very turbulent day. Once before in this apartment, Shin had enjoyed the solitude. But now there was no peace of mind from the guests. The policeman paid a visit to Mo Xiaoyu's place, just as they suspected the guy was here. He was going to be held for fighting and threatening people. At the same hour, they made their way to the police station. Tang Jiaodi filed a report, but the police were still just as reluctant to let Mo Xiaoyu go. Now she felt guilty because she was the one who had gotten him in trouble. But Shin didn't think so, because it was bound to happen, because of his character. Shin realized this as soon as she met the guy. Now Miss Talon had to get into the car if she wanted to see the young gentleman. Of course, she couldn't pass up an opportunity like this. Before the girl left, Shin wished to go with her as well. They were led to the VIP area of an expensive club where Ma Xian was already waiting for them. He got hurt yesterday and now he wanted to complain about what happened to his face. How dare that fool do this to him? Ma Qiyan spent a fortune on her, trying to make her a star, and now what? The whole internet laughed at him. All Tang Jiaodi could say was, "Sorry, and please don't do anything to Mo Xiaoyu." She couldn't understand why Talon was dating such a problematic guy. Ma Xian wanted to put Mo Xiaoyu in jail, and once he serves his time, Ma Xian will hire someone to cut off his legs. As for Talon, he'll dump her once he's played around, but not now. After all, the company paid him a lot. And Talon was required to do as she was told, and then Ma Xian promised to keep her status. Wow, that guy looks so angry. He said he wanted to take revenge on Mo Xiaoyu, but it's a shame he doesn't have the strength. But these insults and scorns were getting on her nerves. Something had to be done about it. Ma Xian wanted to teach the girl a lesson, but it didn't work. It was no wonder Mo Xiaoyu hit him, because even Shin couldn't stand that kid. I had to leave, because all he could do was talk, and the girls just wasted their time talking to him. But he didn't want to let them go, and ordered his guards to capture them. Thinking they were just ordinary defenseless girls, the guard mindlessly attacked them. The thought of these bastards bullying girls, Shin's anger grew more and more, turning into strength. If she could, she would destroy anyone and everyone here who is responsible for Mo Xiaoyu's imprisonment. But for Ma Xian getting hit in the neck with a bat, he might not have blamed Shin. The gentleman was unfortunately fine, but the anger in him was growing by the minute. How dare that girl attack his guards? How horrible! Maybe he should sue her for that. Shin had come here for a reason. She had decided to use the recorder beforehand because she knew that Ma Xian was a scumbag. How long will he stay at the top of the charts now that Shin has posted the entire conversation online? She's pathetic. And this was said by the man who asked the guard to take her phone away from her. I wonder if Ma Xian couldn't defeat this girl. How would he cut off Mo Xiaoyu's legs? Surely he should hire stronger guards. If they put this recording on the internet, the public will surely help Mo Xiaoyu. At this moment, Tang Jiaodi found Shin very cool. Maybe Mo Xiaoyu and her really fit together. The guys managed it very quickly as well. Mo Xiaoyu was now free. Tang Jiaodi wanted to say hello to Mo Xiaoyu, but the latter immediately turned to Sis Shin. Mo Xiaoyu was happy that he was acquitted after all. Even so, he needs to remember that he can't hit people whenever he wants. But Sis Shin's words were completely unconvincing, and she had also beaten people herself. So how could she teach that to the boy now? As expected, Tang Jiaodi is just a third extra man who is only causing problems. Shin woke up very early and didn't even have time to eat anything, so she suggested everyone go back home. Tang Jiaodi hadn't expected that they could go together and was glad for the opportunity. So that the boys wouldn't have to get there on their own, Mr. Hong offered to give the boys a ride. The policeman said that Mo Xiaoyu was facing at least 3 years in prison. So how did he get released so quickly? Shin could only assume that his father had a hand in it. The company has its connections, of course, but so does Mr. Hong, of course, which is not surprising. The daughter was very grateful to her father for this simplification of matters. He, in turn, was also proud of himself that he could be of use to his daughter. After all, Mr. Hong was an authority, and one call was enough for him to solve such a problem. Mo Xiaoyu's life from his awakening immediately turned colors and influenced other lives. Despite all the difficulties, he did not lose his optimism, and looked into his future with a youthful gaze. That same day after breakfast, Mr. Hong and Shin went to Manshan Mountain where the filming set was located. A father was trying to find the right frame to shoot his daughter, and finally found it. He was happy because usually his daughter was uncooperative, but now it was the opposite. There was no limit to Mr. Hong's admiration, but she hurriedly reassured him, because she wanted to get it over with and leave as soon as possible. In any case, her father was just taking pictures and not even filming. He understood, and offered to take her in a bikini next time.
What kind of old pervert is that? Is it okay to say that to your daughter?
Mr. Hong was just kidding. His daughter had grown up very beautiful, something he admired. One day he met her mom right here. She was wearing the same clothes. She was a little sick at the time, so she was more modest than her energetic daughter. Bringing it up was pointless right now. Shin wasn't ready for these conversations, but my father continued. After that, he raised a lot of dirty money. He thought he was a wonderful person, but he let her down, and Xiaofeng died. After they parted ways with Shin's mother, Shin's brother stayed with her. What happened to him? Shin must have heard that there are huge dungeons under these rocks. 10 years ago, it was her father who found his first pennies of gold in them. Looks like that terracotta warrior was dug out from under those mountains too. 5 years ago, Mr. Hong decided to go to the core of this underworld, taking Brother Shin and a couple of experts in the subject. I'm sorry, but only Mr. Hong came back alive. Deep down inside, they did something they shouldn't have done. Mr. Hong didn't even remember how he survived. He had planned to go back and find his son, but when he stood at the entrance to the dungeon, he couldn't even breathe, just like a frog in front of a snake. Brother Shin was exactly the same as Mr. Hong, but Shin was completely different. Her father didn't want to drag her into this dark world. She was supposed to live under the sun her whole life, but she didn't want to hear anymore because she already knew what she had to do. But what about Mo Xiaoyu? Is he involved in this? It's only been half a week, and the internet has been full of news about Talon. Yesterday, her assistant called her and suggested she leave. All notices were also declined. It looked like Lord Ma was trying to harm her by any means possible through the network. But for Tang Jiaodi, this was some kind of fun. She felt sorry for Sis Talon. Once upon a time, Tang Jiaodi had been obsessed with her looks and thought that was all she wanted. But now she's found something much better. Mo Xiaoyu once met Mo Xiaoyu on her path. Now it's the meaning of her life. She wanted to be closer to him, so she tried every way possible to spend more time with him. Right now, he was reading the book that Sister Shin had bought for him. It was a history book. Now no wonder he always sounded like an ancient man. Mo Xiaoyu missed a lot of things, so he needs to read a lot of history books. He only knew about the dynasties, Shang, Zhou, and Qin. Now, he knew about the Han and Ming dynasties. And before that, he didn't even know that the Qing Han dynasty had already ended. Oh, only Tang Jiaodi wasn't strong in history. If she had read more, perhaps she would have more topics to talk about with Mo Xiaoyu. But since she doesn't know anything about history, why not ask him?
Mo Xiaoyu looked over some topics very quickly and didn't understand how he could teach a modern person, being from the Qin dynasty himself.
What a shame. Tang Jiaodi's pickup failed completely. But no, there was no way she could let him go. She had no experience in this, but she could emulate those charming ladies in the movies. There was no giving up. Mo Xiaoyu was surprised that Talon wasn't afraid to be on top of the building, and compared her to Sister Shin, as she was also agile. In fact, she wasn't afraid because Mo Xiaoyu had always protected her, with Mo Xiaoyu by her side. The girl was not afraid of anything. That's all well and good, of course, but what's Mo Xiaoyu to do? The situation was very awkward, but Tang Jiaodi, in her inexperience, didn't notice it. Mo Xiaoyu didn't understand why she was making him feel strange, or was she mistaking him for someone else? Mo Xiaoyu had already finished reading, so he decided to go and rest. Tang Jiaodi thought that this plan worked very well. It seemed to her that he might have had feelings for her too. After all, he was a normal, healthy young man. However, considering Xin Hong, was it normal for Tang Jiaodi to do this to Mo Xiaoyu?